Oh, it's Nancy Knight, member?
Cheryl Sanger, alternate.
Bob Gilbert, member.
Terry Waite, member.
Ray Kachasky, member.
Cindy Pecos, member.
Harry Nodowitz, alternate.
Bill Larson, ex officio.
Okay. Have an opening to seat someone.
I think Cheryl's up, isn't he? No?
Yeah, Cheryl's up, I know, but I'm kind of leaning towards
Harry.
Harry because he's been involved. If that's
Exactly.
okay with
Yeah,
you.
that's fine with me. I think that's a good idea.
'Cause he's been here for all of those previous votes, so, okay, thank you for understanding. Review and acceptance of the minutes of the November 13th, 2014 minutes.
Must be the black and white ones he's talking about, right?
I have a concern under roads, line 55. It was expressed that to not include parking garages as a spot regardless of garage use. Can somebody explain what I said?
Oh, we're in real trouble.
I thought we were including garages.
Yes.
Yeah,
As a parking spot,
Yes.
and not, and if they chose to use it as storage, that was their deal, not ours. It was to be counted as a parking spot.
that's what I remember.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so
that
just to
needs-
remove the not.
Okay, thank you. I'm reading that going.
I didn't think you said that either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
confused as you were.
That's my only comment.
Is it hot in here?
It is not.
I'll turn it down.
Oh, thanks.
Oh,
Second
thanks,
stuff.
Mark.
Is it just me that's dying? or what?
Just a handout.
Yeah.
I didn't get one.
It was emailed yesterday.
Yesterday.
That's right, yeah. I wasn't on that list.
You were.
What?
It was
Gotta
actually,
check
it
your
was
email.
close It to was five.
probably
Once
late
a week.
in
It was
the-
late in the day.
it was-
Yeah, I saw it late.
Any other comments? You have a motion?
I make a motion to a change with the omission of one word on line 55, not.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we passed the minutes. November 20th minutes aren't ready yet, so we'll do that next meeting. We're gonna open a public hearing for the zoning changes at 8:05. And I'd like to go into non-public discussion with town council.
Okay, so we are gonna suspend the internet and
Zoning changes. Thank everyone for their patience, for the interruption of the meeting. But we'll start with the zoning change for the garage. It's pretty straightforward, right? Do you have it? I don't have the wording.
I don't know, who's got the word?
Maybe we won't start. No.
Would you like to look at mine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Please.
please.
Good thing you came.
It's all been signed. Thank you very much. I'm embarrassed. So the changes, garages, the parking space inside garages meets the off-street parking space requirement of this section. Do you have any public input? Anybody speaking for it? Anybody against it? Okay, I guess let's go on to sign. We're gonna do one at a time? You wanna move this forward? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
You wanna go through the public hearing on each of these and then come back and have a discussion, or do you wanna then, it's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's do this one. Yeah, why don't we do the whole public hearing and come back? Because then I
Okay.
can close the public hearing. Okay, next one will be the signs. Bill, you wanna? It's
Yeah.
all been noticed, so
Well, let me just provide a brief overview. The reason that when we went through the sign ordinance is that there has been some confusion relative to some elements of this particular ordinance in the past. And there's been likewise some comments. The one thing that it's intended to try to address is the issue of off-premise directional signs. That essentially we're now saying the only place we're going to allow off-premise directional signs is at the intersection of arterial roadways. So you can't put a off-premise directional sign next to your driveway, you know, where it connects to a town road. So that is a big thrust of the change here, based on the problems we've had with people saying they had a right to construct an off-premise directional sign on public property adjacent to a driveway pointing to where a business was within a condo complex. And we're saying, no, that's really not the purpose of directions. So a lot of these changes deal with that issue. Since we were dealing with that, we tried to clear up other language where it was ambivalent. I mean, things they talked about prohibitive lighting, but in reality it's prohibitive lighting for signs, not for just prohibitive lighting. So we cleared some of that stuff up. There are changes here relative to some input on if you're a new development sign. And the proposed language now, I think, basically said, look, you can have it up as long as, until you get to the point where 50% of the units are sold. I think we originally had the language at, this is just proposed, originally had the language at, as soon as you got one occupancy permit. Now it's, when more than half, at that point you'd have to take it down. And it's also proposed in here that there be more restrictions as to what can be put on the sign. Namely, it's the language says you need to take, we're not going to any longer allow the name of the real estate agent or the telephone number. But you are allowed the developer's name. The rest of the sign can look essentially the way it is now. There have been a couple of other changes that are really secondary. We got into a discussion about this, trying to deal with what's called freedom of expression signs. We're going to take that out because it's just a quagmire of the law. So there will be no comments relative to directional signs. And the other big change is on signs in general, it becomes more specific in terms of maximum sizes, heights. You can't have them over the tops of roof lines. In some cases, the old ordinances, these were unclear as to what you could do, is probably the best way to say. So with that, just as a brief overview, that's the intent of the kinds of changes. It's mostly to clear up things, and we're public input.
Hi, thank you. I think, I just
Could you
question.
identify yourself?
My name's Frank Freeman.
Thank you.
I work at Waterville Valley Realty, and I own a condo in town at Tri-Pyramid. I just wonder what the reason is for not allowing if a builder is building a development and the object of the development is to sell it out, why the builder's agent, be it a realtor or a non-realtor, why the agent's name and phone number or contact information or website wouldn't be welcome on a sign on premises of the new development. Because the whole idea of a builder building a development is to market it and sell it, and the first step in doing that is to put information out. And that's basic information. I'm building this, and my agent is the Jones Company, and why can't the Jones Company be on that sign with a contact information? That's my comment on that.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah. Hi, Mike Aronson, Boulder Path Road. I want to reiterate what Frank had said about the agent and developer, but the other question I have a couple of questions. On the new development sign, I think the initial regulation which said the sign should come down after one unit is sold might have been, I wasn't here for it, I don't know when it was created, I think it might have been a mistake or a complete oversight. It just was kind of nonsensical, and I don't understand what it accomplishes by having half of the occupancy, the sign coming down at this. I think to encourage responsible development, the town has to support our developers. And I think the fact that a sign in good repair, in good condition while the project is on, I don't understand the difference between taking it down in half and all the way. I think it should be allowed until the unit is sold, so the developer can create interest in the project. If there's no sign, that person who's driving through might not know something is available. And I just don't understand why at half as opposed to all. And I would encourage that the language to be changed to when all of them are done. The last occupancy permit is given, the sign has to come down. Because there's no need for it when that's done. The second point I would make, besides Frank's point, was on the open house signs, the 2 directional signs seems to be a bit arbitrary. Some of the properties we represent can't be pointed out by just 2 signs. If you say you're going down to something that's up in Windsor Hill or up in the back of Osceola, you know, to be able to find it would take more than 2 signs. 2 signs just won't do it. You need to say 1 sign on the building to let people know, differentiate which unit it is. And so I would hope that could be addressed and maybe stricken as from 2 signs.
Good, okay. So we got 2 comments at 50% and 2 directional signs.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Bob Wiles, Green Peak Development. I'm in agreement with the 50% being an arbitrary calculation. You know, whether you're building a duplex, which would mean one of them, a triplex, which would mean, I don't know if that's 1 unit or it's 2 units, because there's 3 units in a building. But if you're gonna be building a building in a high density area, you're most likely gonna either have 3 stories overheated parking or 4 stories, which is gonna give you either a 30 unit or a 40 unit building with mixed square footage units inside that building. And if I was gonna be building a building like that in Waterville and was told by the land seller that if I was building a 40 unit building, after I sold my 20th unit, that I had to take down my sale sign, I would probably ask him to go get a waiver, because that would dramatically be a financial burden on the project, not having a sign there that when people come in here, you know, through the holidays, to be able to see that there's an opportunity to purchase, you know, a unit. So I think it's a burdensome, you know, number to put there. And I can tell you sincerely, in all the towns we've built in over 12 communities, we've never had a restriction until, you know, once the community was complete, you know, usually it's either 30 days or 60 days or 90 days that we have to pull all the development signs down. On our sign, we would have the community name, the bank financing, and then the people marketing. You know, the majority of the time there'd be a phone number and there'd be an email address. And it would be a sign that we'd have to bring into the town, and the town would have to review it and approve it. So it wouldn't be something arbitrarily, you know, we would just come up with. It would be an, you know, approval process in that. And then as far as, you know, designating locations with only 2 directionals, you know, depending upon how you're gonna get, because if you're in a community where you need to take more than a couple lefts and a couple of rights, I think having them put up, you know, and taken down on the same day that they put up, you know, I've been here for over 20 years and I've never seen that be a burdensome thing for myself, driving around looking at directional signs. I've noticed them up on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday, and then I notice they come down. And I've never actually had any interaction with anybody in town that's told me that, you know, it was an issue for them.
Okay, thank you. So we got same two comments.
Yeah, and I think having one other thing is, you know, I think, you know, it's important that, you know, you got the development name in there, but I think it's extremely important to have the agent name, so there's no confusion, because I think it helps in the sales process too. And then I think it's a benefit for the community, because then everybody knows who's going where and how they're gonna get there.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Frank?
Frank Freer, I just want to note, I support what Mike and Bob said too, on the open house signs and the occupancy permit limitation.
Okay, so we've got three of the same comments. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the density. The density proposal was to increase the density in the C1 zone to 12 units per acre. It's all been, the wording has been posted, I assume you've all seen it. I'll take comments on that. Bill?
What is the planning board trying to accomplish with this density change? What's your goal?
The goal is to increase the density of C1. That was the original intent when it was created. And we just see that it's getting developed at a less density than what was.
Is the proposal based on some design studies that you've done? I mean, I assume that you've looked at 12 units an acre as it relates to setbacks, open space requirements, internal pedestrian ways, pocket parks, snow storage areas, parking, height restrictions, water infiltration areas. Have you done studies relative to that?
Well, we're in the process of getting a study.
Do you think those studies should be done before you make the zoning change?
Do you have any specific comments about the change itself?
Yeah, I do. My biggest concern is, I'm a big advocate of increased density in C1.
Mm-hmm.
I supported when you moved the density so you couldn't do single-family homes there. I brought with me the SE study group plan that you've all looked at, that was all hotbeds, all increased density in the C1 zone, with the exception of the Green Peak phase project. And I'd be happy to look at that. And I can tell you that everybody I've talked to would like to increase the density on that if you can figure out how to do it. I'm very supportive of that. I think it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for the community. It is, it enhances the economic viability of Waterville Valley. It's absolutely essential. But the other thing that this change does is it stops any future development at Green Peak. And I don't know if that's a specific intent of this zoning change or not, but you folks have all looked at this. This is all of the work that's been done at Green Peak. And I've gone through all the minutes, I've gone through all the applications, I've gone through all the alteration of terrain permits. Bob Wiles and I have spent tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars on engineering, on design, on landscape, on alteration of terrain permits, on drainage structures. The infrastructure has been put in for 3 of the 4 building sites over there. I've paid to put the infrastructure in the ground. The engineering is all done for the whole project. All talked about phase 1. I'd be happy to go through the engineering plans with you and remind everybody that as part of the completed application accepted by the planning board are 4 phases of this project that you've seen over and over again. Every time we brought it in, we've shown additional phases. And it just feels like really there's not a spirit of cooperation, there's not a spirit of working together, there's no recognition that the market's slow. We've managed to sell 3 of the highest quality units that have ever been built in Waterville Valley, with a developer that the community ought to be embracing, and this thing's putting a nail in the coffin of a major, major thing. And I'm not prepared to speak to the legality of all of that, but I can tell you it just feels wrong. It doesn't feel fair, it doesn't feel right. I don't sense a spirit of cooperation, and it really doesn't work for us, I can tell you. If you can find a way to exclude the Green Peak properties from this proposal, go ahead and pass it. Although I'm not an advocate of passing zoning ordinances that are not based on good homework, and where you don't know what the unintended consequences are of the plan that you've done. And this proposed change feels like that. I'd love to work with you folks and come up with a way to increase density. You want a long-term development agreement with a Waterville company? You want to sit down and do some studies with some land planners and figure out how to increase density and preserve the things that we think is important, open space, public parks, parking, internal pedestrian ways. How do you infiltrate the water that's going to come out of all of these things, and say, okay, here's what we have to do to increase density. That's great. I'd love to work with you on this. Including Green Peak in this thing is a real stick in the eye.
I guess I can say, we've been talking about this for a long time, and after we put this proposal forward, I think the planning board is having second thoughts on it itself and looking at some amendments to what we're proposing, so.
That would be real helpful. And I mean, the Waterville company owns all the C1 land in the valley. We've spent, and you've seen it, we spent $100,000 trying to come up with a good plan that meets what the community wants. I think it would be better if it could be denser. And if you remember that original presentation that was made, it requires collaboration. It requires the town, the landowner, and the resort working together to make it happen. And I would really like to do that. That would be fun, creative, and a real positive energy in this community. This proposal as it sits right now is at least from my perspective, very negative. It's a real problem.
Well, I think we're ready to listen on that.
I don't have a specific proposed change other than pulling the thing. Maybe you do, but I don't know what the short-term solution is.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to go through all this stuff again now, or not?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Okay,
think
good.
we have to go through
Good.
all of that stuff. I think everybody's well aware of that study. Not sure how to proceed.
Other comments?
Other comments?
Bob Wiles from Green Peak Development and Abode Builders. I'm in 100% agreement with everything that Bill just spoke of, but just to talk a little bit about, the process that we've been through. Our company has spent over $100,000, which I know is not a concern of the planning boards, between engineering, architectural, state permits, and when I went back through the process and looked at how because I've been doing this for 30 years, and I just wanted to make sure as we were going through the process that we did have an effective communication process. And I know that we only have phase 1 approved, and I know that this was a multi-phase project, but that's how we presented it. When we first came in, we had, we were trying to figure out from the planning board's perspective exactly how you wanted to see these phases come in. And as time evolved, we came to the conclusion that you only wanted to see individual lots brought in at the time. So we only approved number 2. And then we were coming in with building number 3, and then we were told that you wanted to see how the drainage all worked with everything, which we already had but you wanted to actually see it on the plan, so we pulled it up. And then when Bill and I had a discussion, we came to the conclusion that every time we came in with our engineers, it was gonna cost us about $5,000 with engineering work. But we could probably get pretty close to that same number if we brought in the whole plan. And that's how you conveyed to us that you'd like to see all the buildings laid on there. So that's the process we went in, we moved forward on. As we move forward on that, you were also studying parking, you were also studying pedestrian, and you were just studying, and the market was slow. So when we came in on a couple of meetings and we talked about it very briefly, your comment to us was, don't bring a plan in right now because we're not going to be ready to approve it until after we get the study back from the SE group and we understand exactly what we're going to do, because we're just going to probably table this and put it on hold. So from a cost perspective and timing, and time was in our favor because we didn't have sales built up where we needed to start the building tomorrow morning. We figured being cooperative, it made sense for us to slow down and wait for you to come up with your analysis so that we can make an intelligent decision how we can move forward and how you wanted to see the plans put together. And then, over the last few weeks, I find out that, there's a proposed change here that Green Peak is gonna be eliminated. And I've gotta be sincere with you, I was kind of in, when I first heard it, because I didn't get it, I just got it from a verbal, I thought it was a rumor. And then when I started looking at it, Bill and I started talking, I was like, well, that doesn't even make any sense. So, I kind of look at it from Green Peak Development. Myself personally, I've tried very, very hard to be a good developer in the town and work with the board in a process of getting things approved in a manner in which you wanted to see them as a whole. And I think that we want to continue to do that. So I think it's, it's really imperative that, to work together, whether it's a development deal program with the Waterville Company that I will support so that we can work together. I've been involved with multiple high-density projects that we approved in other towns. And interesting enough, they all fall within 7 to 8 acres. And they range from communities that we've approved from 120 to 144 units that were built. And Bill's 100% accurate. You're gonna have underground drainage. You're gonna have a lot of height build, because you're gonna be looking at 3-story, 4-story overheated parking, because you're not gonna have parking. When you start getting the density up, you're gonna have a parking issue. So you're gonna be putting those cars underneath. And when you do that, you're gonna have elevated buildings. So there's a lot of things that need to be evaluated. So if you approve something that says has to be a minimum of 12 units, but then you have a height restriction, you have a problem. If you have an issue with how you're going to have your whole site laid out, there's gonna be an issue. So it's gonna be you'll solve one, but you won't solve the other problem. And I think if you can put together a plan, I think Bill's analysis of bringing the team in, having a work session and putting it together, I think is a great idea. I think it would be great for the town, because I live in this town and I want to see this land to be successful. And I want to see the town to be successful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I'm gonna leave the public hearing open while we make discussions on this, so we can ask questions to the public.
You can do that.
Well, let's go back to the signs and wrap that up. Phil, we've had really 2 comments from 3 people. 50%, two directional signs. The 2 directional signs also
Mike?
included 1 sign at site.
You've got a third point on that. Is the marketing agents on the sign as well as the third
Oh,
point?
I'm sorry.
Well, no, I thought you were on the, just the open house signs right now.
Yeah, we were gonna do one at a time, but
Okay.
I didn't list that. You're right.
Oh, okay. Where do you want to start?
Well, the 2-dimensional signs also includes a sign at site, so it's really 3 signs, right?
Right. Yeah, and the argument is that's not enough to find the property. I mean, the reason we have two
Yeah.
is every other business in town is limited to 2 directional signs.
Yeah.
And I don't think in a town this size, that's an overly restrictive
But you
thing.
get into the condominiums, Bill, where you have, say, up in Windsor Hill, you might need just 2 alone in Windsor Hill to get it to the place.
You're talking about a directional, so you're talking about directional signs that are not on the public right-of-way. So if we said that you're limited to 2 directional signs on public rights-of-way, would that solve your problem?
I think that would be a start to it, because, yeah, I think
Okay.
that. I
It
think
would
that
admit
be-
it,
yeah.
it would improve.
So
Is that
you're
gives-
limited
that
to
gives
2
us-
off-premises signs.
Yes, that gives us the
So
ability.
if you wanna have more on-premise, that's a private property issue, you can, as long as the
Yeah.
condo don't care, you can put signs up the, you can plaster the buildings.
That works, that works. Just because
Okay.
we didn't know where the 2 signs, what the 2 signs
The
meant.
2 signs is to prevent clutter on public rights of way. You know, that every, and a lot of these are aimed at, you know, the kinds of things, and we don't get them here, but like in Campton, you know, with the guy with who's selling maple syrup, you
Yeah.
know, and he's got a sign every 5 feet going down the road. We really want to avoid that kind of sign clutter. So I'll amend that in this case to read 2 directional sign, 2 off-premise directional signs.
Yeah.
What you do on premise
Okay.
is your business. I mean, that's your property. I mean, that's not our property. Okay, let's talk about the real estate agent and the rest. I don't know. Have the planning board members have comments on this? I mean, I think with a feeling, I'll express what I thought was a general feeling, that we generally don't allow real estate signs for anybody else who wants to sell a house. Why are we allowing the real estate agent to be listed for new developments?
Because
why is it?
We are assisting the developer and making it easier for the
Yeah.
developer to have his product
Right.
visible here. It's a different class of person.
So you're a separate business,
It's a business.
has nothing to do with the developer.
Right.
I beg
It's,
pardon?
it says you're a separate entity, you have nothing to do with the developing.
Well, we
No, we're the agent
work
of the
with
developer.
yeah.
We're in a partnership with the developer. It's not like any realtor could put a sign on a development. The sign has gotta be from the agent who's contracted. So we're both sitting on the same side of the table. You know, our job is to effectively market with our brochures, with our TV ads, with everything else we do.
Bill?
Yeah, and I see a differentiation between individual for sale signs and a developer. Developer's in the business of developing, and is partners with the town in developing. And I think the restrictions that are put on individuals trying to sell their own property don't necessarily have to match up with the guidelines that a developer uses, because the developer's an operating business. And in operating businesses usually have different needs than a homeowner.
But we're not
Bill-
prohibiting the
Bill,
developer
you had your
sign.
hand up.
We deal with some developers, for example, Bob goes on vacation. A phone call to Bob, as the developer of Green Peak, might not get answered. But Waterville Valley Realty is the agent to sell those things. We're there 363 days a year, 9 to 5. So that's logically where an inquiry should come, rather than the developer. I mean, every developer likes to have his name out there, but in reality, in terms of selling those units, it's more important to be able to call and the real estate marketing agent than it is the developer.
But Bill,
Yeah.
or Bob, as a developer being in business, you're not gonna go away on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever and have a business phone not answered. I was 30 years in business myself. I mean, that doesn't happen in this day and age, right?
But
I don't disagree with that comment that you just made, but we always, and I want to go back to history of our company selling with, we always have an agent do our sales. We might have our website there where they'll come into our website, but I would say 99% of all the calls that come into our communities go into our agent. I mean, we're building a housing community in Concord, Mass right now. Everything goes into our agent. We have, your abode home, we have people that email us about building a home for them down in Massachusetts, but they'll contact our agent for the sales of the homes in that community. And, you know, let's say Frank's, you know, my agent out of Waterville Valley, and let's say he goes on vacation, it's gonna go into somebody else in Waterville Valley. Somebody's, I mean, in their office. So, I mean, I think it's a very important thing to allow on a sign.
Can I make a point? That we are held to a higher standard than a homeowner ever would be. We have regulations we're governed by the Board of Realtors as to how the sign has to be presented, what has to be on it. We're also governed by the sign, the town. Any sign that we would present has to get a sign permit that's approved through the selectmen. And the sign that has to be in good repair so it's not a hilly-nilly. That's what the difference is between us and allowing signs all over the place by individual property owners. We are culpable for our signs and responsible, which is another level that sets us apart from creating this thing which, if that's the fear that everyone else would put for sale signs on their property.
Well, I think that, no, because we have a regulation that says that you're not allowed to have for sale signs, and I think we should go back and, well, I'm sorry, I'm not sure there's a lesson to be learned in there. Okay, yeah, I hear you. I don't know.
Well, I think
It's whatever the board wants.
our discussion for development signs the intent of the development sign was to let the public know who's developing it, and for people who are delivering material to the site, they know that they're in the right place. It's not a for sale sign, because if we start listening, these were the discussions that we had. And that was the reason why we came up with the 50%. After the building's 50%, anybody delivering materials, either they're not delivering much or they know where they're going. But by putting the realty signs, we thought it was essentially a for sale sign. Go ahead.
I think the for sale sign's really, really important. I think it benefits everybody in the community that all of the units that are for sale in a project get sold. Not just the first half of them, but the last one. And that if you're looking to develop a long-term cooperative relationship with people who are gonna develop all of these high-density properties that we're looking at, if there happen to be units for sale in them, we all want them to get all sold. So I think the question that I think is to you is, if you want to enhance development, work cooperatively with developers, what can you do to meet whatever the standards are in town to make sure that the person who's here having a wonderful time on February vacation drives by that project and goes, oh, there's units for sale there, let's go look at that. That's what the purpose that I see.
The counter to that is always the for sale sign issue that we raised. I mean, it raised the question, why don't we allow for sale signs? And the argument that I've heard over and over, and it makes sense to me, is there are periods, given this town, where we could have 50, 60 for sale signs, and it makes it look like the town is on a fire sale. And we want to avoid that look. So if we kind of change the direction on the new development thing to say, look, you could put a new development sign up, but by the time you get the building done, you got a year that you can keep that up. If you can't sell it within a year, you got to take it down.
And
how about something like that?
Does that encourage?
Well,
does
it
it
prevents
get
the
going
problem
or
of making it
closer
look like we can't sell the property.
Bill, if you've got a big property, you know, and we're talking about high-density units,
Right,
let's say
okay,
it's
yeah, right.
some kind of
Right, I hear you.
the new thing
Yeah,
of
I don't know.
condominiumized hotel. But I agree with you, Bill, and I've always been an advocate that signs are not good. The Waterville Company has an additional restriction on a lot of the properties that we've sold in town that says it's gotta be marketed in a way that's
Right.
approved by us. Because the Waterville Company's always had that same concern, Bill, that it looks like a fire sale.
Yeah, right.
And we don't want that. So I think, from my mind is, the question becomes, how does a development of multiple units put a sign out there that informs the public that there are units for sale here? How how do we do that in a way that's tasteful, that meets the community norms? You know, do they need to be smaller? Do they need to be more permanent? Do they need to have, you know, how do we make them?
I personally don't have an issue with the quality of signs that have been used.
No, but typically, I mean, perhaps I'm wrong, I'm not in the real estate business, but if a tourist comes into town, likes the town, has a good time, wants to purchase a property, drives around, sees all kinds of different properties, doesn't know whether they're for sale or not, doesn't see a development sign, doesn't he automatically go to a real estate agent in that town? There are 2 major real estate agents, if not more, in the town here that have very visible prominences. I mean, and it would seem to me that that's what I would do. I would go to the real estate agent. So the talk right now is if the sign is not there, people just won't buy. I'm not so sure I agree with that.
But I think the other thing that needs to be considered is that we're in an electronic age too, and that you can go at Google or do whatever, realtor.com, and get information, and it lists the agent online. So I think if I were looking for someplace, I always tend to go to the internet to see what's available.
I think you're both correct, but one of the things that we see in the resort area, and you folks may know this from the first property you bought in Waterville Valley, sometimes it's a very emotional, spur of the moment, oh, there's a unit for sale there, and that's what draws you in. You're not looking online, you didn't know you wanted to buy. You didn't know you wanted to be part. All of a sudden you were having a great time, you drove by something, you said, oh, look at that. And that's the spur of the moment, somebody having a great time that we're trying to capture.
But Bill, on the other hand, I could say to you, I'm sitting down having a cocktail going, let's see what's for sale in Waterville Valley.
You're absolutely right.
You know, you don't have to see a sign.
Frank?
Well, you can
I
see
agree with
signs.
both of your statements, in that many people do it electronically. Many people do walk into real estate offices, although fewer people are doing that now than used to do it before. But I think our point is that the on-site suggestion that something's on sale, like Bill says, you drive by, you're impressed by the building, you see a sign that it's available, it just enhances the developer's objective to sell the units as quickly as possible. And just keep in mind that it's the town's objective that the developer sell those units, complete those units, and sell those units as soon as possible to get them on the tax roll, to get them on the water and sewer roll. And so the town is really benefits jointly with the developer's objective to sell as soon as possible. So yes, there are ways that people will buy them without signs, for sure. People ask anybody what's going on there. But a sign just gives you a little added assistance, a little more assistance toward your goal.
Mike?
I think because of what is the tradition and the norm in the rest of the world as far as signs go with development and the rest of the stuff, these are steps that can be perceived by a responsible developer as inhibiting development, not encouraging development. And that's kind of the concern I have, that I think as a town we want to encourage responsible development and instead of putting up roadblocks to it.
Thank you.
I have a concern about making two classifications of sales. The sale by a developer of units that have been built and are being sold commercially, and the sale by an owner who has hired a real estate agent to sell their piece of property. I think fortunately, I don't have to take a position on anything that you folks have said, although it all makes sense to me. But, you know, I think that there's a problem if you're going to classify between sort of commercial property sales in that it's a developer selling property that's been developed, and I own my house and I've hired a realtor and I can't have a sign out in front of my house to sell my house. I think there's a problem with that. I understand that there is a prohibition on for sale signs because of concerns that you voiced. but I think you also have to be cognizant of treating every
Yeah.
seller of property the same.
And I think that was part of our discussion on calling this a development sign rather than once you put a realtor sign on it, it becomes.
No, I mean, one way that you could deal with the proliferation of signs is each development or each existing condo development could be allowed one sign out front that says units for sale and not have a different sign on every unit or something. I mean, I think there are ways that you can deal with your concern if you decide that you want to, pay heed to what the developers are saying about being able to sell.
Would the terminology have anything, well, let me just say it this way. Could you say units available and get rid of the for sale and get out of that for sale as far as
We don't
individual?
allow that right now. The sign can't say units available.
Oh, all right.
It just is allowed to list the developer's name, right, a logo, or a picture. It's not supposed to have written across it for sale.
I understand that, and we've gone through this a number of times.
Right.
I get that part of it.
Yeah.
On the developer sign, do we allow a telephone number?
Developers.
Let's review what currently is allowed. This is what's in the current regulation. Says that they're allowed a project name, a graphic or design, the developer's name, the marketing and/or real estate agent's name, and the developer's phone number. That's Oh, I'm sorry, and the marketing and/or real estate agent and their telephone numbers are allowed today.
Now, what about the change?
The change is you would no longer be allowed to have a marketing real estate agent name. You would be allowed to have the developer's phone number.
So
you
couldn't
could
the
not
developer
list the marketing and/or real estate agent's name.
No, but couldn't the developer choose what number he would like to
Oh,
have?
yeah, right. He could
So
put any number he wants. Right. He
The
could have the real
developer
estate
chose
agent's
to have the
number.
realtor number
Right.
as representative. I mean, that would take care of that situation where if the developer is away, it would
Yeah,
go
I mean, you could just read
automatically.
call, so you're allowed to have a phone number.
I think our intent is not to even need the word for sale or available, just the name of the agent and a number. It doesn't need to say, come and buy them, they're going fast, or anything like that. Or they're even for sale. It's intended.
Well, it's not supposed to say for sale.
Yeah, I mean, we're not
Today,
asking for
under
it to
today's
say for sale.
regulations, it's
Just-
not supposed to
Just
say.
a name and a
Right.
contact number.
So the whole question gets down to basically, in listening to the developer's name, do you allow the real estate agent name?
I don't, well,
No,
I don't
that's
think the
a
name is
developer.
important. I think the developer's
Okay.
name is important, and I think the telephone, because that telephone number, when the person gets the big bolt of light in there, I think I wanna buy this place, he's gonna
Here's the
call that
number to
number.
call.
Right.
I think that accomplishes both. You can put whatever number.
So I don't think we have.
No, I
change.
think if it's a real estate company's number, then real estate company has to be identified by New Hampshire real estate law. Am I right with that, Bill?
By law, this is real,
Yeah,
statute.
You can't put a number without the real estate company's name on a sign.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to identify who you are.
Well, doesn't the developer name take care of that situation?
But
If
once
you're
again-
representing
once
the
again,
developer.
we've reached the issue where the developer is a developer and a marketing agent is a marketing agent. The developer doesn't really wanna talk to all of the people who have inquiries. That's why they've hired a marketing agent.
That's right. That's why if you put that name, that number down, it would end up with the marketing agent. I would think that the developer's name with the telephone number would cover that situation. I don't know what the
The
reason for
real
the law
estate
is.
laws, according to the New Hampshire Real Estate Commission, a person has got to know when he's dialing a number that if it goes to a realtor or a real estate, licensed real estate broker, they've got to know that it's got to be identified that it is a real estate company.
I don't know those regulations,
Yeah.
but that would not surprise me in
No,
the
it's-
least, because they're very highly regulated.
Yeah.
They're very highly regulated.
I mean, even my gut says it would be false advertising to put the developer's name and the real estate company's phone number. I wouldn't be comfortable with that.
Oh, my God.
I wouldn't.
That'd be a-
I'd think, who am I calling? I thought I was calling the developer.
Well, you're calling the developer's representative, obviously. I mean, the developers hires this marketing firm to market the property.
And that's why.
we're also trying to be fair to the other real estate companies. I mean, they don't have any land to develop. But,
That's not necessarily true. They have the ability to buy land and develop land like anybody else.
Yeah, but they can't put a sign up.
If they have a developer.
If they wanna build a spec house on a piece of property,
Right.
absolutely. If they have a
Right.
plan and they wanna, you know, and
Right.
they got a contractor who's gonna do it, yes, they could put a sign up. But if you wanna individually sell your home, right now,
No,
the town
no.
prohibits you from
Ray
putting a
was talking
sign
about
up.
real estate
Which is
offices.
tremendously to the benefit of the real estate agents. I mean, sometimes I look at this law and think, this was put in place so that people couldn't sell their own homes. They would be forced to go to a real estate agent. But I don't know that, and I think it is a good rule. I don't think we want sign clutter.
Right, oh, I agree with you.
Do you get
It's-
complaints about that?
No, we don't get any
You
complaints.
mean sign clutter?
Sign clutter? Yeah,
No,
we
but
do. Yeah, we do get, mostly around temporary signs, people not taking them down. We do get some complaints, I mean, about the, you know, like, why do we have so many signs on the public rights of way? You know, and they're confusing.
But-
And we are gonna have to take that issue on.
And
You
Bill,
know,
you have to,
We're not fixing all of that in this, but we do get some complaints, yeah.
you have to agree that the picture of signage today, I've been in the Valley 30 years, is quite different than it used to be. I understand we gotta manage, but I'm just saying, it has changed tremendously. There's open house signs all over the place, there's different signs, event signs, there's group signs, so we're just trying to deal with managing it all.
I'm gonna, well, that's just my personal opinion. I guess we can get the personal opinion.
we're in
I'm-
discussion. So,
I think I would, only because we've allowed it in the past. We've always allowed the real estate agent's name. I'd say it's not, why, I can't come up with a reason why we're taking it off, per se, other than to make it what? Maybe the argument that, well, I'm not sure I know what the argument is, but anyway, so I would be opposed to putting that back on. Relative to time, I think what my essence would be is you finish the development, you finish construction, maybe you leave your sign up for a year. And at that point in time, you gotta get it down. You can't leave that sign up forever. You know, because you can't sell the 15th unit in that thing. Now you've got the same problem that anybody else has trying to sell a house in this valley. So you got some set period of time that would be conceptually what I think we would want to try to do in terms of that new development sign. So maybe there's a way to reconstruct this instead of staying half at the point in time you finish construction. You know, you got to remove your sign within a year.
What is it currently, Bill?
It currently says as soon as the first occupancy permit is issued, you got to take the sign down.
Maybe we should leave it then.
We could leave that, well, right, just leave it alone. Right, but I know that there's objections about that, and,
Well,
but I'm thinking, you know, to be fair to other people who try and sell property, you can't sell it in a year.
Well, I think that was
I
what
don't
the
think it's a
intent
new
was.
development after a
The
while.
intent was to try to help the developer and get it,
Get
a
it,
little bit better
right,
than
a
it
period of
was,
time to get going,
but
and
still
if
be
you,
sensitive to this idea that,
Yeah.
boy, you know, how much of an advantage do you give a new developer over
right,
a
right,
resale?
Is
at
the-
some point in time, you gotta get it down.
Is your point with the year, is
No,
is
it's
the,
just
is,
arbitrary, I don't
no,
know.
but I'm just saying, I'm trying to get on the theory more.
If you don't sell
In-
it in a year, it isn't because of a lack of, somebody doesn't know it's for sale. I mean, by now, everybody's driven by it.
What do you consider
That's my logic.
completed
Well-
if there are 3 or 4 buildings being constructed,
You know, we
all
could
the
try-
buildings done, or
Yeah, right. If you've got a project and the project is 5 units and you built the 5 units, all right, and you essentially got the construction done. Yeah, there may be some finishing detail you still done. You have a year, you can keep your sign up, and then you got to get
Wait.
it.
would that be after the last occupancy permit is issued, or?
Can you
I would say after you completed the constructions of the building.
That would be the
The
occupancy.
development. I don't know. Would that be triggered by the first occupancy permit? You get 1 year after the first occupancy?
My suggestion would be if you wanna go along these lines and not make this completely arbitrary, if you make it triggered by the first occupancy permit
Right.
issued, and then you have a process where it can be renewed with certain approvals. Because what if you have something where you haven't sold 30 units and you've only sold 10? You know, I can understand where you have the situation where you have a 5-unit building and you have 1 left. That I can see, you know, pulling the sign down. But if you have someone who's taken a big risk and put a big amount of money into the ground, for them to have to pull the sign down after a year, when we have, our marketing times on our properties are a lot longer than people think up here, because remember, we have seasonal people coming through. You know, it's just, so it's not completely arbitrary, a mechanism maybe to get it extended or renewed.
My contention is you're competing against people selling existing properties, and we're giving them no right to advertise.
Except there are 2 classifications. When we get the home sales reports from the government, it's new construction and existing home sales. So there are 2 classifications.
Right.
And what we're dealing with here is new construction, not existing homes.
Yeah, but
Because
if
an occupancy
you
permit-
don't sell it within a year, it's a year-old construction.
But it still doesn't have an occupancy permit.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
whatever we do, I'd like for it to be
No.
in writing and have a definite
That's what we're trying to
whatever.
get to.
'Cause
I'm very concerned about the classification issue, and while I understand that there are classifications of new construction and already existing construction, what you are talking about is limitations on for sale signs.
Yeah.
And that is really back to that commercial speech thing that we talked about earlier, and what your substantial government interest is, and whether or not your ordinance does that, and is there a way to do that perhaps is less onerous? I mean, right now what you've got, your current ordinance is nobody can put up a for sale sign for a piece of property unless a developer is doing something new.
Right.
I'm not sure what the public purpose is behind that distinction.
Well, you heard Ray's argument, so the contractors could find it, so that they
Well,
knew
then they
where
don't
it
need
was.
to have the real estate agent's name on
No,
it in
right.
order to
Right, that's
find
why
it.
we.
That's why they
we
That's
struck
what
it
I
off.
said.
Because it was gonna be a development sign.
It might be that you want to relook when you have a little more time at the whole concept of the sale of property issue for signs.
Could I suggest that it might be in the government's substantial interest to get new development occupied in on the tax and operating rolls of the business side of the government? Wouldn't that be in the town's best interest, everybody in the town, to get tax rolls active?
Well,
to
it's
get-
certainly in the government's interest to have property being used the way it's supposed to be used, but there's taxes being paid on those units.
But
It's just
not
a
if they're
matter
not
of,
completed, because they're not sold.
if they're completed,
They
then
haven't,
there's taxes
yeah.
being paid on them.
But
I
if
mean,
they're
if
only
they're not
half, if
completed,
they're
it's
only
gonna
half
be-
completed because they're not sold, the government is,
Right, because you can't complete them all out until you sell
right,
something.
right.
Yeah, that's a good argument. I'm not sure it carries the day, but it's a good argument, and you can certainly make that argument.
The other thing we can do is just leave these alone. Don't change them. And as she suggested, when we spend some more time talking about this, come back of why are we trying to do this? So essentially a new development would stay the way it is now, which is project name, graphic, developer. You would be allowed the marketing agent's name, real estate agent's number, but when you issue one occupancy permit, it comes down. That's the current regulation, is just leave it alone until we can debate.
That might be, since we're all over the board a little bit on this, that might be the best process.
So we'll just take that out for this.
We take that out. I'll add the off-premise on the 2 directional signs for the open house. And then I've got I have an idea, this is changing enough that we're gonna have to republish this. And do we have time for another hearing in January?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna take out this restriction on freedom of expression signs. And we're going to proposing increasing restrictions on temporary signs. And temporary signs now are going to have some subheadings that essentially temporary signs must be removed after 90 days. I'm gonna give 90 days on temporary signs. The reason for that is we got these Gordon conferences and they tend to last the summer. So that's a temporary sign, that's a good sign, we'll let that stay up. And they'd be limited to size 3 by 3. So you can't have a temporary sign over 3 by 3. Banners are up to 10 square feet. I mean, we have a lot of, so I think it's enough that we ought to
Yeah, I think so.
republish it and debate it.
Yeah.
So that one controversial section, we'll just leave it alone, we won't change it.
Okay.
And then we'll have to have another public hearing.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that next month. We'll change the words, republish it, and put it out.
And you're leaving it that the sign comes down after the first
Yeah.
Right.
occupancy permit?
Until we can
Yeah, right
figure out
now
a way
we're
to
not gonna
do
change
this that considers the interests of everybody here.
The only comment I would have is if you had a choice of having no realtor sign on there, just the development sign, or having it the way it is, I'd rather see you change it to just having the developer sign and a developer number, but I think.
We're gonna have this discussion, we're taking it off for this
Okay, so you're not
section.
even,
So, it's, you know, we've had public meetings on it, so.
all right. Very good.
Yeah, and we could amend it, you know, I don't think we're gonna change it again, and we can come back at the next public hearing and, amend it again. But there are a lot of changes, we need to at least get the ones we agreed to down. And I don't think we've closed the door on this one, although we're,
When you send out the minutes.
right?
No, we wanna
So we're
move
gonna have another
forward with
public
the ones that
hearing.
we agree on,
Right.
Yeah.
because it's up to the selectmen.
Well, you're gonna
Okay.
have your next public hearing before the 1st of January, right? You're
I
gonna have
don't
a
know.
special meeting, because remember, because if you wanna have that second set of changes potentially, you have to have the meeting before your January meeting. Or you can't, the time isn't there to make further changes.
If, Mark, if you have a document that we have right here,
Yeah.
that lists what the changes are proposed,
Yes,
and of the 20 changes
yeah,
that are listed on here,
yeah,
2 of them are eliminated, not
Yeah.
changed, but eliminated.
right.
Is it necessary to go back to public hearing at that particular point?
Not if that's the only changes that are
Right.
being
No, we've
But
got,
those
I've
are
got
not the
a
only
fair number
changes.
of other
Right.
changes.
Yeah, but they're on,
wording.
That's
they're
right.
on here, this has been noticed for the public hearing now.
That's correct.
That's what we're here today for.
Yes,
And if in today's public hearing or in the session after, we eliminate 2, not change them, but eliminate 2
Right.
of those, is it necessary to go through the public hearing with a new notice and everything?
no, as long as
Because you're
there
not
are no
adding
other
any new
changes.
language. So
Right.
you really, that's basically what we're doing, is we're eliminating 2.
Yeah, but you
Well,
don't
he's not-
wanna add the changes to temporary signs, you don't wanna remove, I could
Well-
remove the political advertising and probably that sections
That
as
you're
well.
removing that whole section, if I'm not
We'll
mistaken.
remove those sections and leave the way we've written temporary signs the way it is for the time being.
Well, the only thing you clarified was that it was on,
Even if
what you
they
meant to say
eliminate-
was on public property, or off premises, that's the only change.
Right, we could
Is that
even-
big enough to require a rehearing?
If you are eliminating proposed amendments, I do not think you need a new public hearing. But if you are changing anything or eliminating new sections that you weren't proposing to eliminate before, then you need another public
How
hearing.
about clarify?
Excuse me?
How about if it's a clarification?
You've gotta read that.
Nice try, Terry, nice try.
It was a clarification.
Unless you're moving an ah or a the, you gotta have another public hearing.
And you're saying time-wise, Mark,
Yeah,
if we hold the public hearing in the next January meeting, we could only could we adopt the resolution as written at
Yes.
that meeting, even
Yes.
though there were comments, but we
Yes.
could not amend it.
that's correct.
Right.
How much
If
do
you
you-
But the
wait till
kinds of
January.
changes we would make that we would impose would be significant enough that we'd have to have a public hearing again anyway. Yeah.
Well,
we're
you're-
not changing the and and the or.
Right.
We're doing more than that. So I'd say, well, if people could generally agree to these concepts, we'll have another public hearing, and then either we gotta accept or reject the thing as written.
Yeah. That would
What's
be
their
the
deadline
only
for
purpose.
publishing changes for the next public hearing before the end of the month?
For the end of this month,
Yes, in order to allow time for another public hearing.
they would have to have it by December 30th,
The public hearing,
the public hearing.
right, and the notice has to
The
be.
notice has to be, I think we said 10 days
for
prior.
10 days, not counting
So,
the day
not
and
counting
stuff,
the
so it's
day.
12 days.
Yeah, so we would have to get that into 18,
Pretty busy.
Oh, okay.
right?
can do
So we
that.
got a week
People gonna be
Yeah.
alive.
to get that.
Plenty of time.
I think the chances of us having a public meeting by December 30th are just about zero.
Right.
Holidays.
Well, we could move this forward to the January meeting and then
Either accept or reject the thing in its entirety.
Right.
or you could eliminate some,
Well, I would. I'll make these changes, and
Yeah,
then
no,
we
but I'm
need to
saying-
vote on accepting or
but
rejecting.
next month, we could accept some of them and reject others.
No, that's
You
what you're
just,
saying. You
well,
couldn't
you
do
But
can
no,
it.
we
just,
could
eliminate
you
the
can
two.
eliminate
We could
them
eliminate.
completely, you
We could do
can't
that today.
modify them.
You can vote in January, let's say you only have the one public hearing in January, and you've got the language all the, today you vote to send him off to,
Right.
incorporate the changes that you all talked about and basically seem to agree on. That's put out for notice and then it's addressed at the one public hearing in January. You can decide to adopt changes 1, 2, and 3 and not adopt 5 and 6.
Right.
You do not need another public hearing. So
Okay.
you can do that.
All right.
That all or nothing for each change.
Right. Okay,
All right.
we'll do that.
Gotcha. I think I know what to do. So basically, all of the controversial ones are, we're going back to the original wording. So
Except for the.
I don't expect that many of these other changes, since we've gotten no input, they're probably gonna stand at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
okay.
Except for the open house one.
Yes, I'll change that, right, right. But I think everybody's in agreement that's reasonable.
So,
Yeah.
can I ask a question? If I follow this correctly, you guys are gonna still discuss the new development signs to see if you want to amend that from, or leave it as to the half of the occupancy?
No, it's gonna go back to the current wording.
So we'll go back to half of the occupancy?
No,
No.
the first
First.
issue,
Oh,
first occupancy.
First
So that's what I
occupancy.
meant, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Then it's gone.
Yeah.
But the real estate agent's name goes back on.
I think
Well,
that's a
that's the
lose.
current
I
regulation.
think that's a
That's-
lose for everybody,
yeah.
especially the town. I mean, I'd rather see
We're
the,
gonna have further discussions on it, so.
Yeah, but if you have
Okay.
further discussion
but if you
on it
defer
and
to
change
discussion,
it,
whatever's
then we have to have a
written
public hearing on
in,
it.
couldn't go in.
I think it's.
We'll have further discussions next year.
So
But it would,
Right now, it's gonna stand the way.
so it'd be the town
way
meeting
it
of
is.
2016 then.
Yeah,
Yep.
But this will get voted on in 2015.
No,
Town meeting.
No.
So,
2016.
Alright.
No.
It's a
So
year.
it'll stay the way it is now until 2016, with the developer and the realtor on the sign.
Sign, but first occupancy permit.
okay. Let's move on to the density one.
That's a controversial one.
Take the easy one.
All right, then.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Okay,
If we don't see everybody, have a nice holiday.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
well, I think the way it's proposed now is needs some modification. So I guess we have three choices again. Doing nothing and taking the chance that C1 gets underdeveloped for a year. Because we do have this study coming in from,
Right.
SE.
let's see, we could adapt this.
No.
12 per unit. Or the third option would be to create a overlay zone that would allow less density along Snooze Brook Road. Those are our choices. because we've talked about creating an overlay special zone along Snows Brook that would allow less density.
Well, I'll chime in here. That's what I usually do. I can live with the overlay zone, but I don't like I would live with the overlay zone if the terminus of it was generally where Nelson's Path is now. So all the way from Black Bear to Nelson's Path would be the definition of the overlay zone. I can live with that. If we don't want to do that, I guess I'm back to do nothing.
You still have the issue with,
I think the points that Bill has raised are, in my mind, absolutely perfectly valid. You know, we need to do this right, and I just don't see a rush of condos happening over the next 9 months on this property if we did nothing. And I think the most important thing is to get the input from the study and get ourselves organized and really talk about what do we want this thing to, you know, what do we really want this? What do we want out of this thing, and get that figured out. So I'm kind of supporting Bill here.
Can I make a comment? I'm in agreement with you, and I think that Bill had a very good point with regards to having implementation from the Waterville Company to help us understand what would be going on in the C1. Not necessarily sway us for anything, but just kind of give us an overview of what the projection of that development would be.
Cindy, that's gonna change with the marketing, with market, what becomes saleable or not, and what the developer looks at in the next couple, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Bill. I mean, you may have an overall vision as we do, or what we'd like to see in C1. However, a developer is not gonna build something that's not gonna be saleable over the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, that'd be bad business. So, from my point, I think what you're saying, I think a lot of that is a continually changing.
I agree with you, but we are also noting that in town of Waterville Valley, not everybody who comes to visit here can afford a place to buy a place here. And we also have got a lack of bedding here, beds for people to come in and over a weekend use. And I think that's got to be taken into consideration as well by the developer as the town. We have, you know, not everybody's going to be able to come in and put $40,000, $50,000 down on a condo unit to get a down payment or whatever. I think that we were enlightened by the proposal that Waterville Company had. I don't know about you, but that's still in my head. Still from the purpose of, the gondola seems like a far reach, but who knows? But based on that theory that we had, I think a lot of us are trying to plan what we're going to do in this C1 zone without a clue of what. I don't want to see green peaks all over C1. I want to see business. I'd like to see hotels, you know, either a large one or a small one, better parking. I think those are all things that we need to take into consideration and not have low density in these areas. We've talked about high density, but we need some input. The study's one of those things.
The only way that I see of the town being able to end up with the vision, if we all get to agree on the vision, is by having some rules about the density issue.
Agreed.
I mean, that's the only way to accomplish
No, but we are saying the same
that.
thing.
Yeah, I think. But you have to understand, so it seems to me the planning board needs to get that down. we understand the developer side, and we certainly want to work with the developer. But I, for one, have been, in 30 years dealing with businesses, the only thing that is what is. Promises don't go far in my book. Never have.
I think you're both saying the same thing. We have
Okay, I
to
hope-
protect the C1.
Exactly.
I don't hear anything, I don't hear you guys. any
Maybe
dispute
we're just
there.
saying it differently.
Well, I would put forward the proposal that we create an overlay transition zone from Nelson Path to Black Bear along Snowsbrook Road. And that would eliminate the 12 units per,
And
it
this-
would be the existing rules in
the
that zone.
discussion we had about access coming out to the existing whatever road that is that goes down to the academy and the tennis
Well, that
courts.
was kind of protected.
Okay, well, that's-
Limited to Nelson Path, because the
With
one thing
partial.
we talked about was
Yeah.
having a center road through C1 that would form a four-way intersection with Boulder Pathway, so that there's access into that C1.
Well, that might work, but boy, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of planning that's gotta be done to figure out where that road goes.
Oh,
Or it
absolutely.
would be done.
Right,
Let
absolutely.
me speak to two things. First of all, despite what Bob says, I would remind everybody that, and this is my opinion, I think the Waterville Company is the only person who's held steady and fast to a master plan for the entire valley, who's embraced a vision and hasn't wavered from it. If we were gonna develop the C1 property as low density property, I would have fought you on getting rid of single family homes in there. I would have fought you on getting rid of duplexes in there. The Waterville Company puts the long-term future of the whole resort before everything else. My stockholders have gotten one dividend since 1965. They care about the future of Waterville Valley. And certainly in the next year, you don't have to worry about a lot more Green Peak units. The building today is really, really expensive. The standards that people want in their properties today are very, very high. We've sold 3 units in 2 years. We think it's great that $750,000 units that have sold. I don't know any other resorts that have done that, but if you think that's all gonna get built out in the next year with Green Peak triplexes, man, you know something about the market that I don't know. I do not see any danger of a proliferation of low-density development in this property, whether the Waterville Company owns it or whether we sell it to somebody else. There's no way I would sell this property to somebody who's gonna develop that as low density. The major people that I talk to look at the plan that we've seen for SE Group, they say the same thing we say. How do we get more density? But, you know, everybody's on the same page as that. Relative to the overlay, I think the overlay is a good solution if you want to keep a very poorly thought out zoning change in the regulations, which I think is a really, really bad idea, putting stuff in that you have no idea what the real consequences of that is. But if you do that, you eliminate one of the buildings. If you go from Nelson Path back, you eliminate one of the buildings in Green Peak. And again, to me, that's just not acceptable. As part and parcel of the build out of Green Peak, Nelson Path not only gets relocated, we'd like to find where it's gonna go all the way through that parcel and get into Town Square. So from Nelson Path back does not work for me.
Can I just clarify one thing?
You know,
that is-
one of the things that's driving us is, you know, we look at Moose Run. And they were gonna be private homes, initially, they were gonna be private homes along the golf course. And what we wound up with, it's essentially 80% homes, and we rezoned it to low density at the request of the owners. So we've lost all of that VC land. And we're just terrified of losing C1.
Bill?
Well, I mean, I agree with how you feel. I don't see that
Yeah.
as an imminent danger.
Can I make a,
Because if the market keeps driving the Green Peak type development, that's what's gonna wind up there. That's why we increased it to 12 per acre. We calculated it all out on how many units would be, and it kinda seemed
Did you
reasonable.
calculate what the building heights would be and how much land you need for water infiltration and for parking and for open space?
Well,
And for things like Nelson Path and pocket parks and how you create an environment that people wanna live in? Is that part of the study that
well,
you've done?
other condo units had that similar density or more, so. Anyway,
I just want to clarify my comment. My comment about promises wasn't directed at anybody. It's just my business practices that I've had experience with in the past, so I don't want us to get off on the wrong foot.
I didn't take personal offense to that.
All right,
I
thank-
just, I am
all
very
right,
proud
thank-
of the fact that after 50 some odd years, this parcel of land has not been screwed up.
I'm not
You want a
dis-
piece of land at the end of the ice rink or the piece on the other side of the thing, you know, that takes, there's been a lot of financial sacrifices made to make that happen, and that's not gonna go away right away.
Bill, can you elaborate a little bit? I know you made the statements that it would put the brakes on Green Peak.
The what?
It would put the brakes on the project of Green Peak if you had to go
No,
to
it puts a nail in the coffin.
Well, nail in the coffin, okay. Can you elaborate on why that is the case, rather than making changes to Green Peak to alter it, as opposed to putting the nail in the coffin, so to speak?
You cannot alter Green Peak to achieve 12 units an acre. You know, the way it's designed and laid out and the phases that you folks have all looked at on all the maps that have always been submitted has 6 units, about 6 units per acre. And the access road, the internal circulation road, is only 50% on the Green Peak land. You know, we're trying to increase density by sharing these internal access ways, and it's a major change from what's happening. And I think it's really important that when you look at Green Peak, you don't look at one triplex unit that was dropped out of the sky, that you have a unified 4-building project. They're of similar size, similar architecture, and it works together. And I mean, I've never intended for it to go any further. The plans that you've seen have a hammerhead turnaround at the end of that road, which is part of the plan. It's not going any further.
So what you're saying is that those buildings can't be altered to be smaller and 2-story, and you can't do the density because of parking and open space. Is that what you're saying?
You cannot achieve that density with townhouse units. I've done enough planning, I've worked with enough planners, I can tell you absolutely you cannot achieve that density with townhouse style units.
And townhouse style is what it has to be in Green Peak then?
Well, real estate development was stalled, and that particular location that looks right down towards Osceola has great views. That's one reason why we said, let's start a project and give it as much chance of success as we possibly can, which was townhouse style units, great views, garages, low energy consumption, high quality, as green as we can make them, and that's how we came up with that plan right there. And we looked at all the other plans and said, and we worked with SE Group. We said we can do this without impacting the rest of the development in here. And the other thing, and the one reason why we don't have any hotels or stacked units right now, is I would not allow, and Bob looked at a different project, I would not allow anybody to build any stacked units on any of our land if they don't have concrete floors between units and concrete walls between them, because they're just noisy
Yeah.
and the consumer ends up being unhappy with them. So you've got to do that. So all of a sudden, you've got to build a big unit. Let's say it's 12 units, okay? And it's one building. Unless someone's got a heck of a lot of money that they want to put their own money into this thing, it's not financeable. And in today's market, nobody's going to build it unless you've got the pre-sales. You know, if you're going to build 12 units, the bank might say if you've sold 6,
They usually want 50% pre-sales before you start a big
you
one.
know, so as a
And the rest of it, you gotta have cash for the land, and you gotta have cash for the site work.
So as a practical matter, you can't build that 12-unit building today.
Okay,
You-
so today that, even though there are condominium projects all over the town that are of equal or much greater than 12 units per acre, that doesn't work today.
They're all stacked.
And so
You can't get it
you
done.
could build that development out and you're gonna be sitting on those units, they're gonna be vacant forever.
You can't even, no, if you can build it, you might be able to sell it. But you can't, you cannot, financially, you can't build it. Now, let's distinguish that from what we wanna see get built in C1. I don't think they should be condominiums. I don't think they should be condominium units that meet the demands of the marketplace for that stacked flat unit that would be in a 12-unit building. We need hotbeds, we need rental beds, we need hotel units. I don't know what size they are. You know, the ones that SE designed in the plan that you've seen, which I can put up on the wall right now again if you'd like, and it might help people feel. You want me to put it up on the
No,
wall?
that's okay, I'm just trying to get
I
a
mean,
feel for what
those
it
units,
is that.
those
that's the
units
killer
are all,
here.
those units are all 1,200 square feet. I think they're too big. Those buildings also have, all have no living units on the first floor. I think that's probably a mistake, because I don't think we need a lot more commercial to support, how many people the resort's gonna accommodate, even if we build it all out in hotels. Yeah, if you build a hotel or a lodge, you need to have a little shop or a coffee shop or something like that, but we don't need thousands of square feet more of commercial space. I don't see that. So we're talking about a different financial model than the residential condominium that we're all talking about. We need to go find the hotel developer. The hotel developer who's gonna come in and finance a hotel. I'm not talking about condominiums. I think condominiums, residential condominiums in the C1 zone, with maybe the possible exception of the piece on the south side of Corcoran's Pond, is a mistake.
But that's what you're doing, but you're saying these are townhouses, so it doesn't count as that, I mean, I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
No, what I'm saying is, you got a phased project that you've seen over and over again that basically hasn't changed. There's been some little tweaking here, and you know, we stubbed our toe with a garage issue, but we're getting closer and closer to being on the same page. We need to do that. You know, we need to finish that project.
I thought you withdrew the application.
We withdrew the application for the subdivision of the Phase 2 because the process became very complicated, and the market wasn't there. We're about to launch a marketing program for the balance of these units. Our intent is to build that thing out. If Bob and I have talked, if we could build a building a year, we'd think in the current market, that's fine.
But the application was withdrawn because there was going to be a
Because what?
delay, because there was going to be a delay in the development of it, is that what you're saying?
No, we withdrew that because there was a real difficulty in deciding what the parking was. There was a huge discussion as to whether you wanted to see the adjacent parcels or not the adjacent parcels, and contour lines going from one parcel to the other, show it lightly, don't show it lightly. To be honest with you, I don't think Bob and I ever completely figured out exactly what you wanted, and the amount of engineering dollars we were spending for a 3-unit building was becoming exorbitant. And we said, we will come back in and and get it all approved all at once, even though our taxes go up and we're not sure that's what's gonna happen to the property, we'll do that, cause we can't afford to do it another way. But we're not gonna do it until we have some pre-sales, no different than if it's a bigger building. Because, you know, we didn't think there was a hurry until all of a sudden, you wanna change the zoning so that no more of these buildings can take place.
Well, one of your proposals showed like 30-plus townhouses.
I beg your pardon?
One of your proposals showed 30-plus townhouses, and then that's a lot.
Years ago,
Well, not that long ago, but
the Village Green project
No, one of the
Green Peak project?
Yeah,
showed 30?
it
No.
showed, yeah,
No.
yeah, you did, I got it right here. It showed condos on the other side of the road. I mean, that's kind of scary.
Well, that was a conceptual plan, but this is not on anything that was
Oh,
presented to the
no, I know
planning
that,
board.
oh, I know that.
no,
I've got drawers and drawers full of plans
No,
with
I-
every conceivable application if you wanna be
I
scared.
know, but when we see these, it's kind of
Well,
frightening.
the thing that,
And I guess that was driving us to try to protect the C1.
I guess that's kind of the
this
point.
this is what you all saw as part of it was accepted as part of the completed application for, Green Peak. And this is the Green Peak phase project that was presented and was accepted as part of the completed application for phase one, the subdivision of the first piece of property.
I'm not too
I
sure
don't
about
know.
that. I don't
I'm not
think
sure
so.
about that one.
I think the,
You're not
this is
sure
what-
about this?
This is what got accepted.
No,
It's the one
no.
line.
Well,
Yeah, we did see that.
We
right?
saw
you did-
that.
This is the application that I submitted to the planning board for phase one of Green Peak condominium. That is all the engineering for every phase. The engineering's all done. The utilities are put in for all the way up to, for this parcel, and this parcel. We discussed the turnaround up here, the hammerhead turnaround. We approved the temporary hammerhead down here. This is what we're working on. This might have come in, this thing is some consultation, part of something,
Right.
but this is what was submitted, and this is what is part of your accepted agreement. And that's what you require, and it's not,
Yeah. No,
Are
don't
you,
think
are
we-
you making an argument about,
that's-
what you won't be able to do if the zoning ordinance is changed as proposed? Or are you making an argument that all of what you're talking about has already been approved? I'm just trying to
no,
understand the context.
the only piece of property that was approved is phase
Phase
one
one, okay,
of a phase development.
okay.
But the subdivision regulations require that you show all phases. That's part of it.
Right,
Right.
but all
So
that was
we sh-
approved was phase
So
one.
we showed all phases.
Okay,
To do that, you have to do all the engineering. To do
Right.
that, you have to do an alteration of terrain permit. Did anybody ever read this alteration of terrain permit that I submitted? Anybody have any idea how much money it costs to do an alteration of terrain permit?
I do.
Yeah. You wanna tell them what that thing costs?
It could cost $35,000 or so.
Yeah, and now I'm told, do another one with whatever the new project is. I really would like the opportunity to finish this project. I don't know, it might take 4 years.
One of the problems, I think, is that we don't know, the application's been withdrawn. So we don't know what the next application is going to be.
You wanna talk about that?
Well,
It's on the agenda.
no,
It's on the agenda.
No.
you're still doing
Later
your
on.
zoning.
Right, later on.
You really need to wind it back to the
Right.
proposed zoning amendment.
Right. So again, I guess I would reiterate, we got three choices.
Well, let me show one thing here. Here's, this Nelson Path comes through here. And if you go from here this way, you eliminate that building.
Thank you.
So then I guess we got three choices, do nothing, move this forward, or create that overlay. The basic thing is, do we wanna protect C1 or take a chance for another year? Thoughts? I suggested the overlay, but didn't get much of a response.
With the overlay, I come back to the road issue,
What's that?
the road issue. Again, connecting to,
Well, it would go from Nelson Path to Black Bear. I mean, it's the only way we could protect a way into the core. Getting a lot of responses here.
We're
Don't know
Thinking
speak
about
at
it.
once.
We're thinking.
Just, I think I would be in favor of just taking a pass for another year and trying to get this right. I think we're just pushing this too fast.
Yeah, I mean, when I came into this meeting, I was thinking about the whole strip and changing it mid-meeting with the Nelson's Path. I'm not entirely comfortable yet.
Well, there'd have to be some way of protecting that way into the C1, I think.
this overlay doesn't,
My thoughts.
the overlay allows exactly what Bill's doing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
If it extends all the way to Village Road, it does.
Right.
And my feeling is that as Bill has addressed that Nelson Path may be relocated as opposed to just destroyed. And I think since we really have no plan and no way of determining at this point where a road is going to go, that to restrict it, to protect something that we don't really know how it's ever going to be used, I think that would be wrong.
Perhaps it might be a good idea to
I
wait
agree.
until the pedestrian village study can be done. See how this affects it. I don't think the intent is to put a nail in the coffin of Green Peak. I don't think that's
No, I don't.
the intent. There is a good argument, I think, that you presented, that it would be difficult to have Green Peak morphed into something that would meet that requirement of 12. That doesn't mean it can't be given a different name and put in as different units. I think it certainly is possible to put that density in that area right there. But perhaps the market isn't right for it now, I don't know. You've done these studies, we haven't. But I think that a change of this effectiveness, in other words, it'll have an effect on the property owners pretty heavily, that maybe it would be a good idea to wait till we review that report. I think he's correct. I don't think there's going to be an awful lot happening in the next year as far as using up that land, but I would be real disappointed if all of a sudden something came in that kind of
I think the
made
biggest
me look like
danger
an
is
idiot
losing,
here.
I think
is
we're all
losing,
disappointed.
is losing that access to
Yes.
the core. That's the biggest gamble.
Losing what access, Ray? I don't understand.
The one, a road going in opposite from Boulder Pathway. Because if you put that building there, that road goes away. It won't be a four-way intersection. I mean, I see that as the biggest danger of us doing nothing.
I've looked at that. Are you thinking that that's a municipal road?
Well, that's the part we haven't decided. We've talked about municipal road. There's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah.
But if we don't protect that area,
We lose it.
we'll lose it forever.
Well, what if the application came in and it did show that area being destroyed? Do we have the ability to put the brakes on something like that?
I don't
if
think
there isn't
so.
a change
What
to
area are you talking about? Is it Nelson's Path?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Or are you talking
No,
about?
no.
The area that would have
This
made
whole
an
talking
intersection.
about
Talking about a future road.
I'm sorry,
We're talking about a future
a
road.
potential future road.
Yeah, that would give access to the core area.
And is that road shown on any plan?
No, it isn't, it's only been discussed in theory. But everybody really likes that idea, and if we don't protect it, we'll lose it next year.
I don't think that you can restrict the development of property because
Right.
you're thinking maybe at some point the town will put a road in.
Right, so we'll lose it.
You could certainly encourage a developer
Right.
to do something
It-
along those lines.
It puts the burden on us to do more planning than
Right.
just
Right.
talking about
Yeah.
these ideas.
Right.
You know, at some point in time, we gotta bite the bullet, and if we want this stuff, get pencil down on paper, you know? That's always,
I think
that's always
that-
the problem.
And I think the question about Nelson Path, from what you've told me about it, is whether or not that's already a public right-of-way for pedestrian use.
That's
That's a different
right,
question.
and that's just a.
Totally.
That's a
very
That we will not talk about today.
Okay.
But you need to keep those two things separate in your head.
Right.
Is it appropriate to put a map up so we can talk about where the boundary overlay might work or something like that?
Probably not at this
Yeah, let's
time.
not.
And
Getting
talk
to
about the road, I may have a solution.
I don't think that's the subject of your zoning amendment discussion.
The overlay, the boundaries of the overlay,
Yeah, I think the boundaries of the overlay, if we were moving in the direction of saying to create the overlay, then I think the boundaries would be part of the zoning discussion.
Okay, yeah, I guess
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, you're right. It would
If-
be.
But you're sort of not going in that direction.
Well, no, that's what my sense was, we weren't going in that direction, but, if we're gonna go in the overlay direction, then I think the boundaries would be.
So maybe you
discussion.
wanna figure out what direction you're going in. So Bill will know whether to put the map on them.
Right.
Good idea.
So I guess we got really two options, 'cause
Yeah, I think we're down to two, which is the boundary overlay or do nothing.
right,
the, this overlay came up. A couple of reasons, but was basically put on here by SE Group, right?
well, if you remember, I proposed that
Right.
initially, at the
Right.
last
But I
meeting.
mean, it's, they're kind of supporting it.
Yeah,
So, I understand about waiting for the entire study, but am I wrong in saying that this fits into their study?
oh, it is, it's from them.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
In
We're
his,
waiting for a study, but we've got part of, apparently,
yeah, it's-
we seem to have part of it right here.
yeah.
Well,
And
it
the
seems to me
reason,
that
the
if we-
reason he suggested this is he's calling it transition zone to kind of phase in from the road into the real high development, which makes a lot of sense.
If we're not gonna change C1 at all, then we don't really need the organization.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
if we are going to change C1, there's a lot of other things to think about.
Yeah,
So, and maybe, as Bill said, those things are more complicated than we can deal with right now, and we have to put that off. So if we're gonna put off the changes, then why discuss the overlay?
Makes sense. Should we just go around and say what
So,
we think so that we can just move on?
consensus, do nothing?
That's what I'm leaning towards.
I agree.
Yep.
Okay, so we will run the risk of losing that access. Okay, we'll withdraw that whole
Right.
uh,
Okay.
proposal. So with that,
Well, is there a vote to do that then?
Do
You
we
took a
have-
sense of, you should have a
Vote.
vote as to
Well-
whether or not,
Okay.
because
I'll-
right now, because we posted it, that is the rule.
I will make a motion to.
wait, before you do that, you
Yes.
jumped ahead of me, I was just gonna close the public hearing first.
Okay,
Is that okay?
Okay. No, that's
So I'm
fine.
gonna close the public hearing at this time. And why don't we just do it in order? We'll take the garage, do I have a motion to move that forward?
I'll make a motion to move the proposed changes to the garage ordinance forward.
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so that did that. The signs, we're gonna make some changes and we're gonna move that forward, renotice it.
Or
For
can we
next
just
month.
continue the,
No, no.
okay. We gotta
It has to
renotice
be
it.
completely, I need the new language,
Right.
yep,
no later, are you gonna have just one more public hearing?
Yeah,
Okay, so we need the language by no later than December 27th.
sorry, the language
December-
this afternoon.
I'm sorry, December 17th.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not a problem.
All right. And then that hearing will be at your regular meeting in January. And then you either move it forward or not. You can't change the language any further.
right.
Okay.
Other than we could delete the
You could
section.
delete whole sections, yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
You have a motion?
Do we need a motion to do that?
Well, how does that work? Because there's no language that they're moving forward.
Well,
See, they should, yeah, go ahead.
oh, they should have specific
They
language.
should have specific language because we don't know what to post. And they need a vote to post that language because it's gonna have the
All right.
effect of.
I'm going to, I can read it,
Okay.
here, I'm going to propose adopting, so this would be a motion to adopt the following changes. Page by page, we're gonna have to go. Sections 33388. I'm sorry, 89, proposed, freedom of expression sign will be taken out. On the fourth page, no, there's nothing on that one. We get to I think it's the fifth page, under section 3.5.
Oh, yeah.
11.4.6.3, this deals with new development signs. It's going to read now, a new development sign may include only the project name, a graphic or design, developer name, marketing and/or real estate agent name, and agent phone number. That's the way it's gonna read.
I thought we were
There's no
gonna-
change.
I thought we were
No
gonna-
change, it's
That's no
essentially
change.
what's written today.
So what you're gonna do is move to not,
Right.
you're
Not
not gonna
change
move
that.
that change
Right.
forward.
And
Okay.
likewise on section 3.5.11.4.6.4, we are not going to move that change forward either, which deals with the issuance of the occupancy permit and when the sign has to be taken down. All right? Section 3.5.11.4.7.1, we are going to add to the description a word there that you're allowed 2 off-premise directional signs. Right now it reads 2 directional, and we're going to include 2 off-premise directional signs. Section 3.5.11.4.9 on the temporary signs. We're going to add 2 more sentences to this description. Temporary signs must be removed after 90 days. The maximum size sign is 3 by 3. And then finally, under the last page, section 3.5.114.1.5, freedom of expression, that section is going to be eliminated.
Right.
Those are the changes we're going to move forward.
Okay. We have a motion to do it.
All right, well, that's what, I made a motion to
May I
make
have a
those
second?
changes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
And Sharon, I'll give these to you.
Thank you.
Right.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, now for the density.
Is,
Do you wanna know where you're gonna have a public hearing on?
well, the public hearing will be at their regular meeting on January 8th.
Right, and it's gonna be on the 2 off-premises directional signs and the temporary signs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, you mean it's literally just restricted to those?
Yes.
Yes, you only have to do the
Your
ones
now,
that you
your
change.
hearing is just on those 2 things.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Well,
Did we?
I mean, we haven't adopted the other changes.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I'm saying, why are
Yeah, did-
you, I understand restricting to that, but we've never approved all the other
Yeah, we
changes.
didn't approve the other changes.
You want to approve those now?
No, no,
Well,
no.
you,
So wouldn't all the changes be open to discussion still at the next public hearing?
no,
No.
the only thing that you need, if you approve the proposed language with the changes that you just read off, the only thing that has to go to public hearing are the changes that you made today.
Yeah,
The rest of it's a done deal.
the rest of it's a done deal. The
All right.
elimination
So I
of
guess
those
When
other
we voted,
sections
did
is
everyone
done.
understand the rest of this is a done deal?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think we need a formal proposal to move this forward.
You just did.
Yeah, that's what he's
Okay,
Okay.
so
saying.
you had
Okay.
7 changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You made changes to 2 of them,
Yeah.
language changes.
Right.
I'm with,
You eliminated the other 5.
Right.
Those are now gone. And you got the changed language in the 2 that you move forward to January.
but those 5 have been.
But those 5 are
Yeah.
gone.
Okay,
Yep. Okay.
okay.
Okay,
Now, it's important, I'm going to correct the typo, is that okay?
you go right ahead.
All right.
Okay, the density one. Do we have a motion on,
I'm gonna make a motion to withdraw the, what is it called?
The proposed change.
Proposed changes to the C1 zone.
okay,
I'll second.
discussion, any discussion?
Is it, it's absolutely sure in everybody's mind that they want to eliminate the overlay.
No, not in
No,
my mind.
that's-
but
Well, we're-
That's not the density, right?
Well,
Is
we're
it-
eliminating changing C1.
Everything.
Right.
Therefore,
There's no
eliminating.
definition in C1, is
So-
what I'm proposing. In other words, what we propose
Terry
in
said.
terms of a density requirement, my motion is it's eliminated
At this time.
at this time.
And again, my only, my only reservation is, not protecting that road access.
Yeah, I have a problem with that as well.
But our legal advisor says we can't really protect something that we haven't defined.
Apparently.
But,
So there you go. It's kind of too late.
No, I think
well, you can, but it would,
The overlay does,
it would accomplish that task, the overlay.
so,
Well, no, it
No.
wouldn't accomplish the
No.
task of protecting the road. Well, it depends on what the boundaries of the overlay would be that we propose, if
if it was Nelson Path,
it would
it would give
protect
us a
it.
year
That's correct.
to look at it further.
If the sole purpose is to protect the possibility for road, that's not a valid purpose for a zoning restriction.
Okay.
It would be the other reasons that
The
you
other-
have
okay.
that would support the zoning restriction.
Well, we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Should we take you wanna actually do a count, or?
Well, I'm
Or
gonna,
not.
any nays? I don't know if it's unanimous. I don't think we have to do
Oh,
a count.
I don't know, it's unanimous, but
We need a
Yeah,
definitive
then you have
vote
to-
here.
Then you have
Yeah.
to speak
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
You
you
should
can't,
have a
you
vote.
can't
I
not
guess,
speak.
yeah.
I recommend a roll vote.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. I guess we need one on all of them.
No, just this one.
Just this one? Okay. We'll start with, do a roll
Yay.
call vote.
Do I say my name? Nancy Knight, yay.
I'm not
Yes.
seated.
Right, right, I'm
I,
sorry.
I say no.
Not to move it forward?
No to the
No,
motion.
and restate the motion?
It's to eliminate, we're gonna delete this, we're not gonna move this density forward.
Oh, the density, strictly the density issue.
Density,
Okay.
whether to move it forward or not.
Okay,
It's been motioned that we drop it and second it.
okay,
Which
then I'll,
includes the overlay.
that, is that separate than the overlay issue?
Yeah.
The motion is to.
No, they're tied
do
together.
nothing.
Yeah, you've already voted for this.
The effect of voting in favor of the motion is to leave the zoning ordinance language
Yes,
as it
yes.
currently is.
Exactly as it currently is.
Okay, then, I guess I'll vote, yes.
Yay.
Yeah,
Yay.
okay,
Yay.
okay. Okay, anything else on this? I guess not. So we can go into the new business, preliminary conceptual consultation for future development of Green Peak.
I'm gonna try to make you, I appreciate the spirit of cooperation with your last vote. And with that, I think we can find a way to preserve the opportunity to make that a four-way intersection if that comes up. And I think maybe it's easier just to look at this map that you all saw before that SE Group did. We looked at it a year ago with the presentation that they made. And let me talk about Green Peak, and Bob can jump in. Bob's the Green Peak developer, not me. Bob has a contract with the Waterville Company with an option to buy this whole piece of land right here. And it's taken longer to sell this building than we had hoped. And the complications of trying to expand this into additional phases has been difficult for the issues that we have talked about before. The selectmen gave approval to Bob to enter into non-binding pre-sales agreements, and we're about to move into a new marketing phase by the middle of January. Real estate sales are typically non-existent. Over the holiday period, they start to kick up in January. We're going to have a new project or a new marketing plan, and we intend to market these other buildings. Bob's coming up with some new pricing. They might have one garage. They might have two garages. I've recommended to Bob, he looks at doing them with no garages, so that we have different prices. The alteration of terrain permit doesn't change, the footprint doesn't change. It really doesn't change, the buildings don't change, they don't look any different. And then in this zone, you can have a duplex if it's part of a larger condominium complex. The inside of this road here is a more difficult site. We're gonna see if we can pre-sell a duplex there. It doesn't obligate you to approve it, we gotta come in to do that. But that gives us a different product mix. So now we've got duplexes, we've got a triplex, and we've got various garages, whether they have basements or not basements, just trying to be able to end up with more things to test the market with. All the utilities are in for these three buildings here. The utility and engineering design is done for this building down here. But we are not going to be doing this building. This will be the last building we'll do, because we've got to put in new utilities for this. And if we do one building a year, that would be great, or that would be our goal. If we did 2 buildings a year, that would be phenomenal. This is not going to happen right away. And if we work together, and indeed this needs to become a 4-way intersection somehow, I can buy out his contract if it makes sense. Maybe this gets squeezed up and this becomes a duplex and it goes in there. I don't know, but what I'm telling you is, if we work together and come up with a good plan for a 4-way intersection here, we'll find a way to make it work.
Just one point of clarification. I believe it's multifamily homes that are allowed in C1.
It does. You can put in a duplex if it's part of a larger complex. Let me look it up.
Yeah, please.
Snowing.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. So it's just,
It's snowing.
Huh?
is that with the,
Oh, I thought you found it in the zoning.
No. Sorry.
It snows a lot better than rain, that's for sure.
Yes.
Well, Ray, it looks like maybe I'm wrong. Okay, well, it says a triplex. That's good. My mistake. But in any event, this building here is the last building that we'd be building. And if collectively a road there makes sense, we'll find a way to solve it.
You wouldn't go towards Black Bear?
I beg your pardon, over here with this building,
Or with any building?
it's a real difficult.
Yeah.
It's a very much of a squeezed site. A lot of it depends on what happens with parking. A lot of it has to do with whether aerial transportation easement is ever used and something should go over it. This might be a place for parking. It might be a place for a transit stop. It might be a pocket park. It might be the beginning of a pedestrian connection from this intersection going this way. Maybe a four-way intersection should go. I don't know. I've looked at a lot at trying to get. I'll tell you this. I've looked at a lot of trying to put a road through here, and SE Group looked at it when they were working for us. And the only way that worked in the plans that I've looked at is if you move Village Road. And moving Village Road was never a proposal that I wanted to undertake. But I think a study of internal circulation in here is really, really interesting. And if that's a possible option, moving the entrance on Village Road would be an interesting thing to look at too. I don't know the answers, but in the spirit of cooperation that you just solved, my message is, if this works and is important to the overall development of this parcel of land, we'll find a way to make it work. Bob might not like that, but I'll find a way to make it work. So anyway, we're going to get into a pre-sale mode with these. I think Bob's feeling is you need to have 2 sales before you wanted to start another building. So if we can get 2 pre-sales, we'd come back in with a second phase of this. It might be this building here or this building here. It'd be one of those 2 buildings.
Bill, I thought Bill Lawson, I thought our regulations said that you couldn't sell something that wasn't approved.
We amended that, and the selectmen's ordinance now essentially reads, you cannot sell something, but you can ask somebody to sign a letter of understanding. I don't know what we called it, but it is not a formal sales agreement. There can be no money passing hands, that kind of thing. But yeah, you can get a letter of intent.
Okay.
You know,
I know
that is, I can't remember, but something like that.
Non-binding.
Right? Non-binding, right. Yeah. So if somebody said, and it didn't involve money, but if they ask, you have to give the money back or something.
You can ask for a $10,000 deposit. You put it in an escrow, but nobody's.
Right,
It's their
but
money.
it's
They can
their
call
money.
up any
They
day
can
and
take it
ask
back
for
at
it
any
back.
time.
Okay.
No obligation.
I know it was discussed before.
Right.
Non-binding reservation agreements are pretty typical in the
Yeah.
industry right now, and under the Condominium Act, they'll even allow you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's our intent. We're going out, we're gonna try to pre-market some of these. We'd like to get enough of a commitment so Bob feels comfortable to start one of these 2 buildings. And, you know, the big thing is, how many garages? It allows us to play with the price and see exactly what the market wants. We've demonstrated before you can build duplex garages, two garages on them per unit or not. And that's kind of the big thing. Let's find out what the market wants.
Is this gonna continue sort of in the same theme, so that if you were to walk by it, it would look
Yeah.
like a
They've
development?
gotta look, they'll all look the same.
Can I ask
It'll be one cohesive unit, yeah.
You're saying one or two buildings, why wouldn't you go in succession with, like, you've got one established, why not the next one
Well,
instead
we'll
of?
go on one side or the other. The utilities are in for both of these.
Okay,
The views are better from one than the other. People buy views. I mean,
Okay.
it's just a fact.
so you're saying that if the views aren't great in that middle lot, that lot may not be developed, is that what you're
This one
saying?
here, no,
Yeah.
it'll be developed. You know, when will the market be strong enough to do it? I mean, that's the question.
Okay.
And there are fewer and fewer options all the time, so.
So do you see yourself coming in for approval on the next application for 3 buildings or 1?
Well, we'd probably come in and talk to you about that. I would much prefer to do one building at a time, just because it's simpler, it commits less of my land to Bob, because of, there's some time frames in there. But between the site plan review regulations, the subdivision regulations, and the amount of stuff you wanna see going on with adjacent buildings, I think it's almost easier to come in and get it all approved at once.
Make Bob happy.
Yeah, would.
So, while that's not my preference as a practical matter, that's likely how we'll come back in.
I have a question. If you end up building this next set of buildings and it's not in the adjacent lot, it's one over or whatever, during the construction, that middle lot, would that get disturbed?
We wouldn't go do this one. It will definitely be one unit or the other. The utilities are all here. These are ready to go.
The lot in the
We'll do
middle's
that
the one that's
It'll be
already
one of the
developed.
adjacent.
Excuse me?
The one in the middle's the one that's already there. The one over here is the one that doesn't even have utilities.
Oh, okay.
The
All right.
utilities are all built for these 3 units here.
So the next one you're proposing to build is gonna be next to one of the existing one?
That's
Yes.
correct.
All right.
Yeah, have I misspoken myself?
Nope,
Bob?
that's absolutely
I
correct.
interpreted it differently, sorry. My fault.
Oh, no, wait, no, it,
I couldn't,
to be honest with you, jumping over this site here is not what a developer would typically do.
No, I wasn't even
You hold
going.
yourself in, but it was really important to start off with something with big views.
I think it would be nice to fill in that corner lot.
Right here, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There was some clearing done down on that property down near where Village Road goes in. Is it
Big-
Village Road?
Beg your pardon?
There was some clearing done down in that area. It almost looked like it was the beginning of a road or something that was gonna start.
The sleigh ride people,
Well, yeah, but it's down almost opposite where the the clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
It was for the,
it cuts through here. Or was this done in the last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was for the.
Great. My golf course guys for the last 25 years have been dumping all of the brush, all of the grass clippings, everything on this piece of land, and I've gotten a lot of complaints, because if you walk that little path in there, it smells just because the stuff is rotten.
Oh, yeah.
And so, 6 weeks ago, I told Dana White, I said, Dana, go in there with an excavator and clean that stuff up, haul all that crap out of here. And if he's just done that, that's great. I haven't
Yeah,
checked
He
on
did,
that
he
since I
did.
Yeah,
got back.
It just looked like it was the
But
beginning
for
of
a
a road.
while,
Yeah.
in one of the Green Pig buildings, there was a dirt pyramid in there.
We stored, Dana
Right.
White had dirt, we needed it there, he
And I
put it in
understand
there.
that's been taken out too.
It's not been taken out, it's just been made, so it's a
Oh, okay.
little more
Right,
Presentable.
to help Bob's sales and make it all look better.
yeah.
Hopefully he didn't push it over Nelson's path, I don't believe he did.
No, he didn't.
So that's kind of where we are. Bob, you wanna add anything to that?
No, I think you said everything that's very accurate.
Okay.
But thank you for your vote, and
Thank you.
we will work. I'll work with you on this, if that,
Yeah, if it
if that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
You know, again, I think it's always to avoid some of this confusion, not confusion, but the discussions we've had this morning. I think it's always to your advantage to try to present your concept, more than the concept, come in and ask for approval of the whole thing, even if we build it in phases. Because I know you think that's what you asked for, but I'm not sure that that's what we think you asked for, so somehow we weren't communicating very well.
Well, right, and I'll accept my responsibility for that too.
Yeah.
But the documents say Green Peak condominium phase 1. The issue that we're trying to avoid, just so everybody understands it, is the condominium statute allows you to expand condominiums onto additional land.
Right.
And there are two ways of doing that. You can add land to it and expand the condominium onto that. Or you can take a big piece of land and the condominium can convert that common land to additional units. The right to do that expires in a certain number of years. Remember?
Five or seven,
I think it's 5.
yeah. One thing is 5 and one thing is
And
7.
if you go look at, is it Waterville Place that's beside the athletic club?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
There's acres and acres of prime land there.
right.
What happened was that whole parcel was sold to a developer. He built the first few buildings. He was going to convert the common land to additional units. The 5 years ran out. That is all common land for that condo project and cannot get expanded. That is lost density from the town. It's lost densities from here. The bank that lent on that and the Waterville company that lent on that land, we still have mortgages on future units, but there's no ability to do it unless you had maybe 100% vote of the owners, and then they want all the money, and we'd like to get paid for the land. So the reason why these condominium projects that happened at Forest Knoll, and it's what you're trying to do here, is rather than me selling him 2 acres of land, and I only get paid when he builds the units, and then the market goes to hell, the 5 years goes away, nothing happens here. So as a result of that, we try to add pieces to the thing as a developer wants to build another building to make sure that we don't lose the right to build the buildings. So it has more to do.
Is one of the hangups in here that our regulations essentially say that you've got to own the land in order to apply? Because I'm
Your
thinking,
regulations
because
don't say
our
that.
condo regulations, we don't deal with condo regulations. I mean,
No.
what you write in your condo documents or a form of ownership is irrelevant to the planning board. What we're interested in is, you know, what does the whole thing look like, and if you're going to build it in a couple of phases.
Right.
I thought we did have the ability to approve the whole thing. That doesn't mean you have to condoize it or sell the whole property.
You can approve the whole, you could, like this as a
Right.
phased development, which is what your
Right.
condo docs provide for a
Right.
phased development. So in condo land, it's a phased development. In planning board land, it's not. Because only one phase was presented, like
Right.
Bill said, and only one phase was approved. Now, you could come in and next and say, okay, I've got 3 more I wanna add, and
Right.
I'm gonna have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. This is the way I'm gonna do it. You can approve the whole thing with different timeframes for each
Right.
thing. The problem is that under the Condominium Act, there's a limited amount of time when you can do that converting common space to condos. And even if you built that in that way,
Right.
if the market goes, then you lose that ability.
Right.
That's where the rub is. And of course, the risk is that if you don't come in and get that all approved as phases, then you run into this problem of, well, maybe
Right.
the zoning ordinance is gonna change and I'm out of luck.
Right.
Right. Well, no, we had other problems too with it, which was setbacks are different because what you're doing is lot line mergers and, trying to create a bigger
The
piece of
condo
land.
world is very strange.
Right. Well, no, but even then what happens is what rules do you apply here? Because we have setbacks for property lines. I mean, it gets complicated. It's easy to just do it as one chunk.
Right. Here's one of the issues that we dealt with, and we dealt with it early on, is if you build it on one piece of land, the zoning says you have to have 30 feet between buildings.
Right.
Okay, so we're trying, and I'm a developer, I'm trying to get all I can,
Right.
so I'm trying to get 30 feet. The individual lots have a setback of 20 feet to the lot line. So when you go piece by piece by
Yeah.
piece,
Now it's
you
40
have,
feet.
now you have 40 feet between the buildings.
Right.
So we've talked about two things. The very first thing I came in and talked to the planning board about was, I'd really like to do, I got two lots. I got this little lot here and I got this big lot here. Now I just want to come in and do a lot line adjustment, add the piece of property, plop the building on it with 30 feet.
Right.
The bank didn't like that. We danced between a lot of different regulations. So the bank says, no, we want you to create another unit, and then you gotta merge the two pieces of property. Once you merge them, then you can go back to the 30-foot setback, and you put that.
Why did they only want to, they only wanted to mortgage a distinct piece with that new piece on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we got caught in a financing
Or you'd already
thing.
sold that other one off, yeah.
Yeah, so part of it is keeping those setbacks,
Right.
the distance between buildings at 30 feet, or, is 30 feet the right number? Should it be 20 feet? Does that open up this thing here? There's a whole bunch of things, but the developer, and that's what we do, we get to dance between the Condo Act, what the bank wants, what the subdivision regulations say, and in the end, we miscommunicate with the people that we talk to first, which makes all of our lives a lot more difficult.
Yep.
But in any event, that's where we are. Thank you for your vote. I can assure you that you're not gonna get burnt on this. Certainly in the next year, we've got time to work on it. I look forward to working with you, whoever you wanna work with. I think that this stuff is critical, you know that. I mean, I'm the one, I've been saying that forever, so.
But that second building, the second condo building at Moose Run, that must be in the same situation as one Waterloo Valley Place. Originally it was gonna be 5 units in there.
And Moose Crossing,
I guess
Yeah.
it's Moose Crossing.
they got an extension, they got the owners to agree to extend that 5-year deadline. And they have, and Rob DeGennaro, who owns that, has every intent of putting the other 2 units on that building. And in fact, he sent me a set of plans, the plans for that building that's consistent with the approval that he has from you folks to build that other building. Is he gonna do it? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But they bought that whole piece of land. That was
Right.
very different. They came in, they said, here's your money for the whole piece of land. And then being greedy, it's less important to me whether they build that unit because I wasn't getting paid per unit.
Mhm. Okay. Just curious.
Are there any other questions that I can answer?
Nope, I think we're all set. Thank you.
Bob, you wanna add anything?
Nope, you did a good job.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is the CIP.
Mark is supposed to
Mark.
be here.
Let me
There
go
wasn't
get
a lot on the CIP, other than the only controversial item was I had the CIP, the fire truck.
Yes, as usual. That's Terry's truck.
Was it the
Well,
truck
a little
itself
bit
or
different
putting the
this
money
year.
in ahead of time?
They have, I think there is a proposal that we create a reserve fund for the fire truck,
Right,
which could be used to fix the thing
yes,
if needed, in addition to buy, it could be used to buy a new one,
yes.
Yeah.
but it could also, the money could be used to fix the dog.
You're correct.
I think that,
Did
That
you
was-
do
we
the
did that last
inspection?
year.
Did you do that? Did we create that reserve fund last year?
Yeah,
Oh,
but I think we
thought-
reduced it from 80 down to 40 or something
Right.
like that to.
Yeah,
what
well,
else
we're
we
gonna
did.
Well,
use
that
our
was
money.
the
We
plan,
didn't-
right?
no, I'm
I don't think
And
we
we
did
were
it.
gonna
We
come
just-
back with it.
Yeah, that's when it went down to
We
30.
need you. Did you
Okay,
get the
just
inspection on the
a
truck?
point of order.
Sorry.
Nancy had to leave, and I'm now gonna seat Cheryl.
Point of order, do you need the lawyer anymore?
No, but thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Thank you all, happy holidays.
Couldn't
Thank you.
have-
Bye,
Hang
Bill.
on. We couldn't have done it without you, though.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you for
thank
coming,
you.
and
Um,
tremendous help.
I'll go check out Barrington.
And Lee, it may be in Lee, I can't remember which one it was, but it was right there at that Lee Circle area. Either on Route 4 or Route 125.
Okay.
Let me just, oh, I'm sorry, on the CIP, while Mark's getting his stuff, you want to do this? or-
Do we
I
get
need
a
it
copy?
all stuff?
Yeah,
This
Right.
is the stuff that Mark sent me.
We had, what was?
yeah, we got the 40 down,
Why
the
don't you,
80
Mark,
down.
why don't you do it? You're here.
We don't have
Okay.
it.
Mark, can
It
I
got
ask
Sorry,
emailed to
Mark,
us.
go
you
ahead.
get the on the truck?
Not to you?
No.
Oh, no, I'm CIP.
Yeah.
Where would you get it? Oh,
He's on the committee.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
It's Jerry, Cindy, and
The
I.
whole thing.
It's back and front and back.
Maybe that's my position.
No. Thanks anyway.
This is front and back.
I got enough of my own positions.
This is a good printer, not like.
Yeah, no, Terry's. Oh, mine?
Terry. Yeah, at least
You know,
mine-
even the heading on that email
Yeah.
was weird. It didn't pertain to it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a nice
Thank
holiday.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Thank
too,
you.
everybody.
Jay.
Beat the snow.
Yeah, he's really still involved.
Okay, so, the
I don't know, who knows?
two things with, the committee did some work on it, and the selectmen had an opportunity last night to review it, so I have modified the committees, the department heads presented to the committees, or to the committee made changes, the selectmen have made changes to the committee's, changes, so this is.
So we don't know what we have.
This
yet.
is the second revision from the prior year plan and department head input, okay? The major things are road resurfacing, addressing both Noon Peak and Jennings Peak in 2015. That's a total of 155,000. The 20,000 in wastewater and 20,000 in water is to replenish the capital reserve for emergency repairs to either system. We used almost all of the $40,000, well, $35,000 that we had in there. So this money is to go back in and replenish that. We've had several doing the water meter installations. We've had to replace a lot of shut-off valves and services to the different buildings. We also have an ongoing issue with well 3 that we had to replace the pump and all of the controls on well 3, and we had to do that during 2014. So that $40,000 will go back to replenish that. $20,000 in replacing the John Deere tractor. And then because of we originally had resurfacing Noon Peak in 2016,
Yeah.
but the selectmen have brought that forward and they have eliminated the capital reserves for all except $10,000 towards the ladder truck.
Did that cover the cost of it?
Cover the cost of,
I remember we had put one of those roads off to 216.
Right.
Selectmen brought it back into 215 apparently, and tried to make up the difference.
by moving the capital reserves for the loader and for the trash truck,
The 230.
into, moving those into either 16 or replacing the vehicle in 16. Okay? So, the net effect of that was to increase the overall capital program by $5,000 for 2015.
Feeling on the
Um,
roads is, if we hire a contractor, it's cheaper to get both of them fixed
Economy of scale.
than it
Yeah.
is to.
Yeah, the higher the tonnage, the less per ton you pay, so.
So
Um,
the reserve for the ladder truck, the numbers per year
Instead
just,
of 30,
just changed.
the numbers per
amount's the
year
same.
change. The amount, the overall amount is
Right.
the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and then the final thing is the Corcoran Pond repairs. One more year of the capital reserve and do the repairs in 16. The changes, we looked at this last year, and then with the implementation of some capital reserve accounts, we lowered the bonding amounts. So this sheet now reflects the CIP through 2020. Okay? And the selectmen have asked me to differentiate once, because the CIP doesn't go beyond 2020. The debt service payments, this is if we don't do anything else, but of course, 2021, we'll probably have something else. So I have dotted the lines for debt service payments and overall total debt service to reflect the fact that the CIP ends in 2020. The other thing is you will notice that 2015, with the current CIP, 2015 is the peak for debt service principal payments and interest also. So we have, it's $680,000 in 2015. And it does not go above that, even with the additional borrowing that's currently in the plan. It does not go above the 680 anytime in our amortization schedules. Okay. So we're trying to flatten out some of these lines. We could potentially use more cash to replace smaller vehicles and the like, but we'll have to see how that goes. But we are trying to level off not only the cash expenditures, but also trying to keep the debt service that we have to actually pay each year at or below the 680 number.
One of the goals on the committee was that at the end of all that we were going to be doing, the effect of the CIP on the tax.
Mhm.
Right.
I mean, it's only a portion of it, we
Right.
understand that.
Yeah.
But after all this was said and done, because I know at that point in time we were thinking it was going to maybe a slight increase. What was the final? I'm not asking for a figure, but I mean after all this adjustment and putting in what the
Well,
selectmen wanted.
it's right now, between what we're paying this year and what we're projected at the 680 number, we're looking at a tax impact for just the debt service piece of about 40 to 50 cents per thousand.
Okay, but the CIP is more than just the debt service. It's also.
It's also the cash
Cash.
pieces.
Right, right.
We are lowering the cash expenditure and the use of fund balance in 2015
So in 2015.
compared to this year.
Okay, so in 2015, as compared to this year, the effect of the CIP, both principal payment and cash.
It's about flat,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Because the debt service payment going up is offset
So
by
there's
the
no-
less cash
Okay.
that we're using.
So there's no greater impact on the tax base
That's correct.
if you.
That's right.
Why the pause?
Well, because I'm thinking
That's
about,
what
I gotta
Is it
go
a
back and
school?
look. The only pause that I have is how much fund balance portion of that there was. So the actual cash, I call it new taxes for lack of that's the most descriptive way I can think of it. The cash portion, not the fund balance portion,
but the cash portion of the plan, right? So the portion of the $235,000 that's not being funded by fund balance, I think is the offset for the increase in the debt service. So that would be a wash.
You
see what I mean?
Well, let me try the tax rate. Correct me if I'm wrong here. When I always look at the bottom line and start to say, well, what's changing the bottom line? The bottom line is going up by about 3-4%. And when you look at what's driving that, where is that coming from? In all of the monies we spend, there's really two explanations. One is some of our debt decisions in previous years impact us this year. So the amount of principal and interest we have to pay this year is up, all right, compared to primarily because of all the building and the waterworks projects that have been going on, right? The other piece is the biggest single impact on the town's budget is every 7 years you have to budget for a 53rd week of benefits because the benefits are calculated on a weekly basis and you get into this leap year thing. So every 7th year you got to pay an extra week, and that's about a $50,000 hit. Those are the real big changes. After that, it's nickel and dime.
So we're in the 7th year?
Yes, this
Yeah,
is
this
a 53rd.
is the magic year where we get to pay
2015
the
will be a
extra, the
53rd.
extra premium.
So basically, the increase was as a result of things that couldn't be altered.
That's correct.
Yeah, these are things that we'd have no control over. I mean, but if you looked at the basic operating budgets, what people spend every day, they're pretty flat, I would say. Overall, pretty flat. And there's a lot of ups and downs.
Most of them are within 1% of what we did in 14.
Yeah, right. So it's fairly flat.
Okay.
So what is the
Doesn't address the
basic?
school.
No.
Oh, it's way too early to tell.
Oh, wait,
We don't know
yeah,
what the
no,
state
we don't
is, we
know,
don't know
yeah.
what the county
That's why
is, we
I
don't know what the
put it
school
We
is,
don't.
so.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's still a mystery.
Yeah, so and you see that those numbers, the debt service payments, are going down over the life of the CIP. And then if you look at here, Terry, right now we're projecting $90,000 less in cash in 16 over what we're requesting, and then it goes back up a little bit, then it goes way down, then at 2020. This is the cash number, right? Right here.
Okay.
So you'll see the cash breakout, okay? So my goal is to try to get that, because we are gonna be looking at all of our roads in 2015. We're gonna be looking at all of the roads in town, because nothing except Noon Peak and Jennings Peak are on this plan right now. What we'll try to do is level off this cash amount by putting some amount of cash towards the roads as we
When
go.
you say Jennings Peak, does that go all the way down to Village Road?
Jennings Peak, it goes from, it's the first third of the road. It goes from Valley Road up to the first house. I forget who owns
Oh,
it
so
on the
only that
left.
lower portion.
Yeah, just the lower portion,
That's
because
the part that didn't get done last
the
time.
part that didn't get done last time, and we had some major water issues in there while we were doing the water meters in Windsor Hill, and we need to, it's drainage, replacement of the water fixtures, and paving.
That's the
So,
part you drive on, right?
yeah, the part that, well, and that's one of the reasons why it's an issue, is because it's so heavily trafficked.
But that
Yeah,
didn't
we're
get done
thinking
the
of
last
charging
time.
the people in Windsor Hill for
Right.
that.
Little toll
Wearing that road out.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll have a toll.
Toll booth.
A toll booth.
A toll, I like that,
The
a
last
Windsor
time
Hill
you
toll.
didn't do
Yeah.
that section.
Right.
Well, they did that upper section.
Right.
People are going the
guys
back
didn't
way.
Calm down,
Yeah.
Ray.
That's right. We still don't like you, Ray. It's, especially Saturday, so.
Did you put that picture up on your screen?
I have not, but I did put a flag up, so.
So, okay, we had this study from the pedestrian village revitalization.
Right.
Well, time out, wait, I'm
And
sorry.
Yeah, wait, let me finish, will you?
Oh, are you still on this?
I got the talking stick.
Well, are we still on the CIP? That's all I want to know.
Yes, we're still
Oh,
on
okay.
the CIP.
I stand corrected. I apologize.
Anyway, we got this preliminary results.
Mhm.
Anything that's been put in here, it looks like you put in a couple of earmarks for $1.
That's right, 2016.
Yeah, it looks
I've got
like
the
you-
lighting, signage, and sidewalks, but just placeholders,
Yeah,
because we're gonna have to go through in 2015, see what the
Yeah.
recommendations are, and then I would anticipate that, you know,
Looks like
so
you did.
I just wanted to highlight the fact
Yeah,
that
that-
we
Yeah.
are
that it's there.
expecting something there.
how about the sidewalks?
Yep.
The bikes,
Well, bike paths, sidewalks,
Sidewalks,
you know,
okay.
it's really the
Okay.
pedestrianization.
how about a gateway? How about that gateway? We
It's
talked
part of the
about that for-
pedestrianization, I think that's part of their branding, what they're gonna be recommending.
Yeah,
I think that's all part of that.
because it's nice to get it in here, just as a placeholder.
Well, I got it under, we can
Yeah.
consider under signage, you know, you've got pedestrian lights,
Yeah.
you know, street, so, you know, it's all included.
As long as we
Mm.
take some advantage of all
Right.
that money we spent for a study
okay.
that reflected in here. Okay, good. Anything else on the CIP? Oh, Bob?
Oh, no. I was gonna say, I thought we were going on a different angle. I was gonna say, don't we have to make this a recommendation to the selectmen?
Next thing on the agenda is,
Well, you do have to vote, I mean,
Oh,
just
I'm
so it's
sorry.
in
Yeah.
the,
I
so
get
it's in
so
the
excited.
minutes.
Yeah.
You have to vote to move this forward.
Or delirious
holding
wants
the
to.
stick?
do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the CIP
Move it forward to the
and move
selectmen.
it forward to the
Selectmen.
selectmen.
Okay,
I'll second.
second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Does it count that they've seen it already? Selectmen?
Now it's just gonna make
Oh, yeah.
No, it
one
makes the
less
process-
revision.
Makes the process
all right.
easier.
Now, under old business, I'm gonna let Terry take this one.
Which is that?
That's
Clearwater.
Clearwater, clean water.
Oh, the clean
Well,
water.
did Bill leave,
Yeah.
Language?
No.
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
Bill?
Bill can't,
Cantlin,
Language about what?
the merger.
about the easement for the lot line merger. Okay,
No.
so put it off till, cause I don't have the language if he didn't leave.
That was where
He,
we put off.
he just told me this morning that he has the language,
Okay.
but he has not given me the language. When he gives it to me, we'll PDF it and send it out to you, and then we can put it in the January
Okay.
Right.
agenda.
Yes, we'll table it again till the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is committee
We will get it
reports.
done before April 1st, so that it can be reflected on our new tax map.
Next committee reports, the update from the pedestrian village study.
Wendy's not here.
Wendy's not here.
Well, we were, a few of us were in on a meeting the other day, and our recommendations from the planning board per our chief have to be in on Friday, correct? Our comments on the
Oh,
proposals?
yes.
Okay.
This
I
Friday?
wasn't-
Yes, this
Okay, because I
Friday.
talked to Wendy yesterday, she asked me to get them to her today,
Well,
so.
because we wanna get them to him to get to Mark Kane, and supposedly, we're
So they're
coming-
going to you, Ray, and not Wendy?
No, go to Wendy.
Oh,
go to
okay.
Wendy.
Yeah.
All right.
Sir?
We're going forward, right, at the end, hopefully in January?
No.
I talked to Wendy, she's thinking about February.
Oh, we're having a meeting at
Oh.
Martin Luther King weekend, that's true, with the SE group because it was bad timing for January 3rd because of all vacation, holidays, etc. Martin Luther King Day, a lot of the property owners are here for that weekend. It would be a good time to have the additional
I
session.
think Wendy was Melbourne.
Now she's
leaning
changed it.
towards the-
Oh, she's changed it again?
Yeah, she's talking about Massachusetts vacation.
Right.
Okay, I hadn't heard
So
that.
we don't have a date yet.
No, no date.
Well, except January 8th, you're gonna talk to Mark Kane, though. right, for the presentation to you. You were talking about the public
Yes, yes,
presentation
yes.
being in February.
Right.
But you need to go over it either at your January or your February meeting, so you guys know what's in it before you have your
Yeah.
public meeting.
Yeah, he was hoping
Okay.
to, yeah.
So it'll either be on the January or February agenda
For our regular meeting?
for your regular
Regular
meeting.
meeting.
Because he said it would give us a second final draft.
That's what
right?
yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that you can
You're right.
discuss that and make sure it's what you want. Okay.
How do we get to the final draft? I mean,
Well, you gotta vote to approve whatever he gives you.
Will that be
well,
in,
he keeps saying he's gonna make the changes, so this last one, I guess we'll just accept.
can I
Well,
have
if
a
it has all
question?
of your changes in it, and you go over it as a group,
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So what is the purpose then of having the public, if we approve it prior to that meeting in, the mass vacation,
yeah.
does he want input from that as well
No,
to be?
no,
No,
It's
no,
just
no,
an
this is to
informational-
prevent them,
Okay,
present them
okay.
with,
Thank
This
you
is
for
it.
clarifying that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
Okay.
not asking
here's the
any more
results
questions.
of what we did.
Okay.
So the January planning board meeting or the February planning board meeting, is he gonna pick based on when he's ready?
Well,
Where he-
we're gonna push him to do the January.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And then the February would be the fallback, but he should have all of your changes implemented in time for us to get you a copy prior to the January meeting.
I asked the planning board to get all the comments in by tomorrow.
Yep.
Tomorrow's deadline.
Yep.
And I told Mark that after Saturday, consider you got all the comments.
You got all the comments, right, okay. All right. Very good.
Anybody wanna adjourn?
I'll make a
I make-
motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Good.
Did a great job. I mean, we actually got through this in a morning. It would have been the old days.